feeling like I'm well enough to go get a haircut without getting anyone sick. I didn't want to take any chances. Why does the counter say 0?
It's just it's not in sync with YouTube. It only updates like so many seconds.
Oh, there it goes. Well, anyways, folks, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to have a guest on tonight, a good friend of mine. It's going to be a good time. Here's the thing I wanted to tell everybody. The conference is coming up. It's like a month away. Do you get my book?
Yeah.
I got the proof print, or whatever they call it. What is it called?
Yeah, it's just called a proof.
Proof, whatever, for the book. It's right here. That's it right there. Got to make a few changes. There's a few things that I did not know needed to be changed, but they're going to be changed. And it will make the book a little bit longer. Now, the book came out about 160 something pages. With the changes, it'll be about 180 pages. But you got to remember, there were a few thousand words that had to get taken out. I had a whole not quite a chapter, but I had this. Just giving you the FYI if you're interested in the book. I read it. Great book. Can't say enough about the author. He's a great guy. This is awesome, incredible dude.
Yeah, that guy should start a podcast.
He probably should start a podcast. I've been thinking that. I read it, and the whole time I was like, this guy needs to start a podcast. But then I went online.
He should start a podcast and get 2 kids to work for free for him.
For free. Yeah. That's the thing here. Thank you for that donation, Tito. And I'm sorry about that, Linda. I really am. I didn't even know you had been blocked. You know, we owe you a T-shirt. In fact, come to the conference on me if you can make it, and I'll give you some swag. You deserve it. I totally did not realize that you've been blocked for that long. And tell your brother he was wrong. I'm not that kind of person. But here's the thing. You were right. I am a very busy person. And here lately, I have been hurting bad. I have gout in my good knee. I have a good knee and a bad knee, and I've been having to put all the pressure on my bad knee. You know how hard that is? It's very hard. And I have been dieting. I have been exercising. And then gout, boom, hits. But I have high levels of uric acid ever since I had the vid. I have had 2 kidney stones and 3 gout attacks. Up to that point, nothing. Now, I take that back. I had a kidney stone 2016, but then I didn't have anything again until 2021. And since then now, I've had 2 kidney stones with the most excruciating pain in the world until I had gout. And then I thought, this is like a kidney stone in your knee. And I had it in my elbow before the conference, just in time for me to not be able to exercise or do anything. Yes, it will be on Amazon. Sharon Lane, thank you for asking that. Now, the book, Werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena, okay? It is a smaller, we made it smaller. The problem, when I got it, is that the print was itty-bitty. I was like, woo, what is this? Because I said I wanted it to be small so somebody could carry it, you know. It was suggested to me. Now, I talked to several different authors who have different books, and they were like, you got to have something that you can carry with you, and it's easier to read, when you have it, whatever. And so I thought, that's a good idea. And then I got it, and I was like, I need my glasses to see these words. So the print has to be made larger, but not so large that it ends up looking like a children's book, because it's not. And there's a lot of good information here. And as always, there's going to be some stuff in there that we haven't talked about. I save something in my back pocket always. For some of you who just follow the show, it's going to probably be like a review, but there's going to be some stuff you haven't heard before. And so it is, there was a controversial wasn't quite a chapter, was it, Anthony, Tony? What do you think? Like, several pages of controversial material.
Yeah, it was part of a. It was certain details of one of the stories.
Yeah, and I thought with the witness, this guy being deceased, against the advice of a few friends of mine, they said no, leave it in there, and I said no, it's controversial. It's too controversial. And so I just thought, I couldn't do it. So I pulled it. I pulled it out. So then the controversy popped up with the Bigfoot book, which is right now being done, is being edited by Beth Wahiski. Very nice person, good editor. And then Eddie Kadi, who's the formatter, all nice people, cool people, good people to work with. And I'm going to wait until after the conference, maybe get through October, and then I'm going to start on the next book. And it's going to be about ghosts, and then I'm probably going to do another one that's just about more obscure cryptids that and I'll probably do another Dogman book too. There's a lot of meat there to work on, and that and the show will just support each other. They'll feed off of each other. But definitely go and pick your copy up at Amazon. It will be ready for sale, I would say, probably by the end of next week, right?
Yeah.
That's probably about right. And then you can go and buy your copy.
Not to mention, if you go to the conference, you can find it there as well.
And I will sign it now.
Oh, yeah.
When I was reading the book, when I finally got it, and I just, you read it in the PDFs as you go along. Obviously you're writing whatever, and you're reading it. You're like, okay, I need to change this. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I did have a team of people who were giving me advice. But at the end of the day, they can only give you advice. They can't do more than that. It is really up to you. It is your work. You have to claim it. And so to anyone who I may not have taken your advice, I took it into consideration, and I figured that I am much smarter than you are, and I decided to go ahead and do what I wanted to do. Okay? That's how it goes. All right? So...
I mean, you did define the term asshole, so...
The point is that if you actually read the book, you will like it. Okay? And I have allowed a couple of my dear close friends to read the book. Like David Weatherly, who did the foreword for it. And there's going to be a couple things I'm going to talk about tonight with my guest that's going to come on. And we'll get into a little more stuff. But here's the thing. Barton wrote a glowing review of my Bigfoot book. It hasn't even been released yet. He helped with the information and, of course, interviewing people, as did Ken Gerhardt and a few other people. We've all worked together as a team. These two across from me did too. And Barton read it, the whole thing, the finished product, and he said that it rivals his book in humanoids. That's a tall order. I don't know that it rivals in humanoids. I don't know that I can write a book that would rival that. And we go through and we talk to the witnesses, and there were a lot of places that I had to go to turn up the witnesses and get them, and then turn it all over, and then everybody that helped with the interviews, because there were 60-something people altogether between the two books. And not everybody could be on this particular, and some of them had great stories that were just as good as anybody else's. We just had to start somewhere, and we'll probably go back, and at least I'd say 75% of the people whose stories we had chosen that we considered that were nominated to be in these books, we'll go back and probably they'll eventually make it into another book, because their stories were no better or worse than anybody else's. It's just that we can only do so much.
Tamara asks, Josh, have you ever thought about narrating your book for Audible?
No.
That'd be a good way to sell it.
Yeah, but I don't want to have to sit there and read those books.
Well, yeah, but it's a one and done thing, and then it just sells over and over.
Okay, then set it up for me then, WizKid, and I'll do it. But I don't have time to do.
Because he has to sit there and read every
I'm not an
word.
octopus. I can't do 1,000 things. Getting these done was, I don't know. It's a testament to willpower of mankind. Like, I'm no better or stronger than anyone else. I just, I have ambition and the will to defeat it. People are like, how do you do these? Just do them. See, there's two kinds of people in the world. There's those that dream and do, and then there's that dream and don't. Everybody sits around and dreams. I don't like to sit around and dream. I just want to do it. And if you get the right people around you that know what the heck they're doing, it goes a long ways. I mean, it can really go a long ways to getting you to where you need to be. And it was imperative that I have these conversations and I thought it only fitting for tonight, you know, and maybe give you a little more in-depth 411 on how this all came about and what ended up happening. Wendy Eater says, wrap your knee in cabbage leaves. Huh. Well, Sharon, thank you for that, saying that I have a great voice. I appreciate it. And also, I don't know if I thanked you, Tito. Thank you for that donation. All donations are appreciated, but they're not expected. I was called a profiteer on Facebook by of course, this guy was just, overburdened with an abundance of education. I mean, you could just tell it was oozing from him. Yeah. And he was on there and he was just talking smack and, and I'm a profiteer and a sensationalist. Or I don't even what all he was saying, whatever. And he was sitting there just running his mouth. And then he said he was coming to my conference. He said, I'm going to see him next month. I'm going to ask him to his face. I'm like, no, you're not, because I'm not going to have you coming to my conference and causing problems. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, if you're coming up there to start trouble, you're not going to get through the door. And if you do, then there's going to be a problem. I don't need problems, We want to have a peaceful, good time, come to the conference, have a great time, enjoy some good food, good people. We're going to have security there. Just letting you know, everybody needs to know that there's security, and don't come up there thinking you're going to pull some crap. This is Texas. He said, everybody's armed. Yeah, exactly. Everybody's armed. I told him that too. And he tried to say, I threatened him by saying that there were people that were going to be armed. Yeah, that's the truth. Because it's a crazy world we're living in. So everybody feels safe to come, There are other conferences where these things happen. I was hearing about it recently at another conference. Somebody was going to fist fight somebody and looking for somebody and blah, blah, blah. And why? The simple fact of the matter was that this guy, and I'll explain it to you, he doesn't believe like me. He doesn't believe in me. He calls me a woo-woo nut. A woo-woo nut. It sounds like some sort of like wacky health food from Whole Foods or something. Have you tried our woo-woo nuts? Oh man, they will make you go nuts. Packed full of fiber and lots of woo. Like, I have no idea what this guy's deal is. Like, I don't associate with woo-woo nuts. Then why would you come to my conference? If you don't associate with people like me, then why would you want to come to my conference and ask me a damn thing? Because obviously you would believe that I would be lying, right? I'm a liar, right? That's what you say. So why would you come and ask a liar anything? Just don't bother.
And then he would have to pay for the privilege of asking a liar a question. Not to mention the travel time and the cost of traveling, and then pay money to get in just to ask someone he doesn't believe a question.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. If I was up here spouting off irrefutable facts, right, that is a fact, and I am spouting them off incorrectly, let's put it that way, then you could hold my feet to the fire. But what have I said to you? Now, I've told you my beliefs. I've told you what's happened to me, which I believe is what's really happened to me. I have not fabricated or said anything like that, that I've never said, oh, this happened to me and it didn't happen to me. And 90% of the time, like I said, there were witnesses. Exceptions, very small exceptions. There weren't a witness. But believe me, when you sit there and tell me you're going to come to my conference just to ask me a fraud, he didn't call me a fraud, he called me a sensationalist, woo-woo nut, and he called me, what else? There was a profiteer. I'm going to tell you something, folks, and I want y'all to hear this because you're my audience and you're my people and you're my peeps, and I want you to know this. How long was it, Tony, before we made a dime on this show? 2.5 years.
So long because we had to buy so much equipment that we started out in the hole basically for this.
And then when it flooded in here, we lost all of it, which was $2,800, and we had to start over. Our business had to support this for about 2.5 years, and then in the third year we got a small like 1099 or something from the second year.
And we were actually really proud of that. We were like,
we actually made a profit.
I remember you showing it off like, ha ha ha, look at this, we're doing something. And I was like, yeah, it's impressive.
And all that money just goes right back into the show. And then the third year, when we finally started making an actual profit. We're like, okay, the money has to go right back into the show. And we put it all into the conference. And now for the last few months, everything has been going toward the conference. So we're not lighting the world on fire money-wise. It's still a baby trying to set, it's not in its infancy anymore, but it's still not. It's almost standing on its own.
We're at the child table now.
Yeah,
we're not sitting with the
We're not
adults.
the toddlers anymore.
Yeah.
But we're still not where we need to be. I want to be further up. We're approaching 25,000 subscribers. Probably by next week we'll have hit that mark. If we don't, we're about 100 away, 120, something like that. We're 25,000 on YouTube, but we got thousands of listeners on other platforms for the podcast. And it's just funny because, I started out in this, and the reason I'm telling you this, I'm trying to give you the 411 here before my guest comes on. I had a lady, and she asked me, and it's 3 times in the past probably 2 weeks, we've had somebody ask us. The one lady at the gym, Summer at the gym, she asked about it. She was very nice, very polite about it, and she wants to do a funny channel. She's a very nice person. Her and her brother want to do a channel. So I gave her some advice. She said, okay. And I had this other lady wanted to do a channel. It's a cooking thing. And I just said, well, doing a podcast, I don't know about cooking, but doing a podcast is not easy. It is a labor of love, and it takes its time. And you have to have consistency. Well, like this other guy, he tells me, I want to do a show. I said, what do you want to do? Paranormal, like you. Okay, what do you need to start? I said, well, the first thing you got to do, you need a good microphone. If you don't have a good microphone, you're going to have some issues.
Actually, the first thing you need is time.
Well,
people don't realize how much time goes into
I just said,
it.
look, that goes without saying. I said, look, he didn't have a regular job. He works part-time. Okay. So I told him, you could do that. And I said, but you got to have a good microphone, whatever. When we started naming off the things he needed, he's like, well, I'm going to have to wait until I can get money for all that. In the meantime, I'm just going to use my phone. And I said, you can do that too. Some people do that. That's what they do. But I told him, I said, at some point, you're going to have to graduate to doing it seriously if you're wanting, because he wants to be like us. Mm-hmm. The problem, though, folks, is that every day there is a new podcaster. Half of them probably watched my show and said, oh, I'm going to do that. I can do that. And they just decided to do it. I don't know. But I was talking to the guys from Expanded Perspectives about it the other day, and it's just one of those things. Like, they started 4 years before we did. I was listening to them, that was pretty much the only channel I didn't really listen to any other
Me
channels.
too.
That was it. And so Kyle and Cameron, they're good guys, and they were like, dude, how many times have you been asked? And people will go, okay, and then they'll go start a channel. 3 months. 3 months is the average. We were talking to somebody, and they are a huge podcaster, but they're political, and I don't really watch a show, but I don't want to. But he acknowledged me and talked to me, and which was cool. And he's like, I'm not really into the paranormal, and I want to say his name because, like I said, it's political, and it'll probably galvanize people one way or the other. And he was like, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time. He thought he was going to be able to just do it as like a sideline thing, which I did. And it became an all-encompassing thing. And he asked me my formula and what we did and how we did it and whatever. He gave me some advice, which I think is correct. And I have a couple other bigger podcasters that have shows like I do who are giving me some advice that I'm going to try and take in the near future. But I have a very a system, the way that we've kind of fallen into a groove of what works. It clicks. I'm a storyteller. I don't sensationalize people's stories if I can help it. I just tell it like it is, but I tell it, a lot of times when people tell a story, and if you notice some of these bigger ones that put people on there, I get that. That's fun and everything to listen to the person tell it live, but a lot of times it's so hard to do. I have a hard time doing it. I have a really hard time doing it unless it's on my show and they're telling me, because it's like when they're telling the story, I'm sitting there going like, oh man, they could tell this so much better. Because you want to captivate people. That's the truth. I mean, that's what I want to do, and tell your story. I get it, but they'll be talking. They'll be like, oh yeah, and then I left this part out, and see in the prelims, you can get all that worked out to where when you tell the story, you know it from beginning to end and you can put it together the way it's supposed to be put together.
Well, people don't realize like storytelling is an art. It's one of the oldest arts. Word of mouth, being able to entertain people with it. And the thing is, it's like watching a painter as an artist and not kind of critiquing them. You have to, because it's just innate. And you knowing what words to use changes so much in creating a tone and a theme and creating kind of suspense and stuff like that. And it's not easy to do, and it's kind of something that you do naturally. So it's understandable when you would hear a story and you'd be like, ooh, I'm not saying, it's not like you're saying like I could do it better. You're just saying like if you would have just done this and here, it would have created a better effect of what you were looking for.
But there is something to be said for people's eyewitness talking too, because if they're able to talk,
well, the emotion that they put in,
if they're able to talk, and it's not just some polished story that they're spouting off that doesn't sound legit. I mean, I like to hear. I'd like to have people come on the show and tell it themselves. I always give them the option if they want to do it, and a lot of these people don't. Like Amelia. I mean, what's his name? Well, there's a couple different people that we talked to recently.
Yeah,
they didn't want to tell their story. They wanted me to tell their story, but that's one of them's story has been on 4 different channels. So I'm retelling a story that's been heard before. So how do you make it more exciting? You just got to tell it like it is, and that's just it. I mean, a lot of times people just they'll elongate it, drag it out, and then they'll get nervous, and then it sounds like it'll sound like they're lying. And they're not. I'm going to tell you right now, I promise you, like I have been on the phone with somebody and it's just me and them, and they will absolutely nail it. They will tell me what they have to say, and they're like, dude, this is great. But then when it comes time to going on the air, I had one that just backed out at the last. She's just like, I can't do it. And I was like, you talk so well. You articulate. Just couldn't do it. And then I've had other people that will get on and they'll leave stuff out and stuff like that, and you're like, when you're doing the recording, and then you'll just tell them, look, in the middle of the recording with one, I just said, do you want me to just tell it? Because it seems that that's kind of what you wanted. He was like, yeah, you just go ahead and do it. And it was just, they weren't, Now there's other podcasts that shows, YouTube shows, whatever, that'll just put people on there, and they're always looking for a guest. So they get in a pinch and they just throw them on there, and then they start, not, it just doesn't come together. And you're like, oh, well, it was just a bad show. See, I don't want that. I don't want to just, oh, well, it was just a bad show. I've had a couple. And this one really large podcaster that I used to deal with, he said, well, you're going to have some bad shows. I don't believe that. I don't believe you should be having bad shows. You got to know beforehand what you're going to do. But if you pigeonhole yourself into one formula and that's all you got, you're a one-trick pony, then that's it. This is just some advice that I'm giving out to the potential podcasters out there. Decide what you're going to do and what your strengths are, and play to that. Find your niche. Somebody asked me, they said, do you feel more comfortable interviewing people, or do you feel more comfortable telling people stories, or do you feel more comfortable, doing it live or pre-record? And I said, yes. All of the above. I feel completely comfortable. I'd like at the conference, spoke in front of 480 people. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'll talk in front of a bunch of people. I'll talk at a podium. I don't get nervous and whatever, because you just say, if you're authentic, it's you just spit it. Well, it doesn't have to be, just tell it like it is. But I get that not everybody does that. Now, I have several smaller podcasters that are friends of mine who've become friends of the show, and they want advice, and I'll tell them. But it seems like every day there's a new person that's doing this. And I'll give you the simplest advice I can. If you're going to start a podcast, make sure you have, like Tony said, time, right? Mm-hmm. Second thing you need to do, okay, play to your strengths. Decide if you want to do guest interviews, or if you want to do, storytelling. Some people can do both. Some people can do both. There's a few out there that everybody can do it, but it's how good you do it. It depends. A lot of people can't. And I've seen the hybridization kind of show up since I've been doing this. I've noticed over the last 4 years, over 4 years now, 4 years and a few months, whatever. I've seen hybridization where it's kind of the order of the day now. But it really wasn't when I started. There was like two kinds of people. There were the interviewers who were always scrambling for a guest, and I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I've always been good at telling stories. And so, or accounts, whatever, encounters. So, it would be better for me to do both because I don't want to always have to scramble for a guest when you can easily just get emails from people and just read them and pick out the ones you want to tell. But if you have a story to tell and you're capable and you articulate well and you know the story by heart, then by all means, I would love for you to come on and tell the story. I would rather you do the talking than me, honestly. That's my opinion. Some people don't share that, but that's just some food for thought for people who are potential podcastees who want to do podcasting and YouTubing. It's not as simple as just sitting behind a microphone because any fool can do that, man.
Yeah, and I think another thing that is like spoken, but like not really. I think it should be repeated is like never put out a product that you're not proud of. Like we've had plenty of times halfway through a recording where like, I don't know about this show. Maybe we should restart it and try to figure out
or we recorded a whole show.
Yeah, and
had to
scrap it.
Scrap it. That's happened when me and Tony Merkel did it. Folks, tell you a funny story. When I was on Tony Merkel's show, I did a couple 3 hours with him. I don't remember. And we talked and we did one like banger of a show, it was for his podcast. And then he goes, "Oh crap." And I go, "What do you mean, oh crap? What's going on, Tony?" And he's like, "I didn't record any of that." So we had to literally, it was like over an hour. It was over an hour. And when he figured it, and I said, "Oh man." And I said, and it was October before last when I did that run I did of like, I was in the studio 27 days out of the month. And every night I still had to go out and do my guard checks. It's not like it ended, And so I told myself I'm never doing this again. It was too stressful. And so last year I didn't. I just did 3 or 4 friends shows and that was it. I didn't do anything. I did a few extra on mine, but 27 shows, some of which were mine. And then we had to record some, pre-record. And then I had to go out and do other people's shows because I had agreed, because I was taking advice and somebody saying that, hey, you need to make the rounds, especially in October. And I said, okay. I don't know how well it helped, but I did get a few, listeners and so I redid it. I was tired too at the end of that. And Tony was like, "You okay? You good?" I'm good. I can keep going. We were almost done. And he's like, "Man, what turned out to be 3 or 4 hours of stuff, and it was cut down to like 2 or 3 hours. I don't know how many. I didn't ever listen to those episodes, but Merkel does a good job. He's a constant professional. But when he interviewed me, it was like, the first hour and it didn't record. And it was weird because he said that there was some weird stuff that had been happening in the studio we were talking about. It was kind of odd. And he said that never happened before. And so, and now I've been on a bunch of other people's shows. Hey, Mike, I see Mike at Normal Investigations. They want to stop by and say, hey, check out his channel. He's one of the good ones. I like him. There are a lot of really good shows out there. A lot of good ones. But then there are some absolute stinkers. And here lately, I have not had a lot of time, but here lately, I have gone through and checked out some other people's shows and tried to do the rounds, and I've found a few smaller shows or some hidden gems in there. I am about to, like I said, as soon as I'm done with this whole thing with the books and the conferences, whatever, I'm going to start on another set of books. I've already decided I'm going to do that. It's going to be another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to keep going. It's just something that I wanted to do. It's a dream I've had for a long time to do that, and I just something about the written word that And I also want to get into what I'm going to be doing, my upcoming project. It's the UAP project. Now, two different ways to say UAP. And I heard somebody say this one time, and I actually thought that that's what it was. But I always thought it was unidentified aerial phenomenon. And then somebody used it in the way they said unidentified alien presence. And like Eric Sims said on the show last week, he was on the show. We were talking about ghosts and all kinds of stuff. And he said it keeps changing, and it's true. And some of my friends in MUFON have told me, yeah, we really need to do some work on this. And so I was approached by a very famous author about co-authoring a book. Not necessarily him writing it or me writing it, but we both write it. We put our names on it. And so I thought that would be cool. And so I don't want to give too much away, but that is in the works now. We're getting ready to sign on to do that. So I'm going to be co-authoring a book. But the book is going to be written based on a project that I'm going to be doing. So it is about alien abduction because it's a very big part of this phenomena. Now, I'll get into a story before we get our guest on. Give me a few minutes here. I was approached by someone who said, I have been an abductee since I was a young man. Now, 16, a lot of people say, well, you're not really a young man, you're still a kid, or you're whatever that age is, in certain cultures or whatever, they give you a spear and they tell you to go, oh, wait, that's the Spartans. Anyway, the point is that he was a young guy. He was 16 years old. And some 16-year-olds are still children. And some 16-year-olds are like grown men. I was much like a grown man, and I moved out of my house when I was 16. Imagine that. I moved out when I was 16. Lived on my own since I was 16 years old. That's not something that most people do. What is that? Okay, so here's the thing. He was a 16-year-old, very much like me. He worked out in the fields. He was in the farms. He was working out in the field in Nebraska. Didn't live there, but he was working there. I believe he was from Ohio. And in fact, I know he was. And one of the things he told me, he said, I was abducted. I was out in the field, quintessential abduction. Like it was the missing time, everything. He says there was this ball of light above us. It was so bright we couldn't see it, what it was. We were working nights. It was overnight. Very large farm. And me and another guy. And we look up and boom, it hit both of us. They were working on a combine. The combine had stalled, whatever, and they were trying to get it, Kind of like my paper shredder, which I can't get to work for nothing. I got to beat it and punch it and kick it. And my wife's like, you're going to get electrocuted. I'm like, how?
Well, they always go out.
This one went out like quick. We just got it. I'm going to take it back to Office Depot.
Wait, the one we just got went out?
We just got is not working. I cannot get it. It's intermittent. And I'm punching and kicking that thing. Anyway, point is, this guy, we'll call him Davis. Davis got abducted. Doesn't remember his first time being abducted. But the second time he does. And then he began to recall of the abductions. One of the things, and the way he found me was because I was a friend, and we went to it at a conference in San Antonio, which I've said before. I went to a UFO conference down there, and a lot of people there actually knew me. I was surprised. I was actually pleasantly surprised that there were people who wanted to talk to me and take my picture with me, whatever. I didn't know I was that big in the UFO community, but I mean, I'm probably not. I guess I'm just maybe more well known than other ghost or cryptid researchers. Hey, man, what's going on, Larry? How you doing, man?
Doing good, brother.
And so we got a visitor here in the studio, Larry Fisher. So one of the things that I talked to Davis about was what these entities or aliens told him. And one of the things that came up, which was very, very weird, and me and Anthony, and I believe it was you and me and Nellie, was it last night or night before? What was one? I think it was the night before last. We were driving, we were doing our guard checks, and Anthony had to go run the errands in or whatever because my knee, I could barely walk. Took forever to get up the stairs over here. So one of the things that Davis told me, he said that there were two different types of entities that he met. The main entities that he was dealing with were from one particular area, Zeta Reticula. As people know them as the Zetas, whatever. And then he said that there was another one, another group of aliens. They were from another galaxy, another one. A completely different galaxy. But both had been coming here for a long time, and he said that the ones from Zeta introduced him to these other ones. I think they were Pleiades or something, Pleiadians, whatever. And they literally told him they thought it was odd how backwards our civilization is and how much technology we've had for how long we've had it. They're like, you should be doubling, tripling, quadrupling. You should be moving at light speed by now, like just moving along, not just moving into space light speed, but they talked to him about our modes of transportation and how, you know, they were like new, I guess. They were being shown the ropes by these other aliens. And one of the things he said to me really stuck with me, and I've heard this like maybe 3-4 times now. They were shocked that we were still using, because he was farming, right? They were shocked that we were still getting our sustenance, our energy from other living things. They couldn't understand that. And so these Zetas were telling them, well, they're pretty backwards, and that they're basically, they eat, you know, animals, and they farm, and these other entities were surprised by that. They hadn't been coming here for a long, long time. They had neighbors who had been coming here. But it was kind of like a Cold War where those other neighbors didn't tell them anything, and they were keeping it a secret, and they were exploring different parts of our galaxy, even though they were from another galaxy. These are two different clusters of galaxy, you know. And so what he told me was very interesting. And he asked me if I had ever heard anything like that, and I said yes. This wasn't the first time I had heard this. It's very weird when you start listening to these people tell their stories. So I want to go in depth about that, and not just with his abduction, but with all these others abductions. And of course, Barton, I see him in the chat. Barton knows, like I've said before, we went about 3 or 4 in with the Bigfoot interviews, the project that me and Barton did, which was a series of interviews we did. We interviewed all kinds of people. Daryl Denton, who's a good friend of Larry's, good friend of mine. And Larry's right here. You want to pan over? You want to say hi, Larry?
Make sure you're talking to the mic.
Hey, y'all. Enjoying
I see I like your shirt.
I thought I'd put a little plug in for my brother.
Well, a very famous author compared my book to that, and so I feel very, you know.
Well, my wife has my other shirt on, so you know the 4X in PRT. So you know, I don't mind sharing, putting a plug in for Brother Barton.
Barton's a great guy, and folks, Larry Fisher's a very big booster and supporter of the show. He's been a good friend, and he worked for me for a few months. So here's the thing. Barton and me, and Barton, you know how he talks. He's like, is it just me? Or is there something weird going on here, Wolf? And I said, man, it's not just you, brother. There's something going on here. I think it was 4 out of 5. And they were talking about ghosts. They were talking about Bigfoot. They were talking about alien abduction. I mean, I'm talking like some of these people, you know, I mean, they're well known in this community. And they were just opening up about all this weird stuff that was going on. And that's what sparked me to write the Bigfoot phenomena. And you know, when you go down that proverbial road and you hit all the stops, you start to realize that there's more to this. You know, when this guy told me this story, he thought I would. He kept saying, "You're going to think I'm crazy. You're going to think I'm crazy." I interviewed a woman, really nice lady named Christy. I'm not going to give you her last name, but she talked to me and my wife the other night. Shout out to her. She's a very nice, sweet person. And she kept saying she had an encounter with something at a cemetery. She says, "You're going to think I'm crazy. You're going to think I'm crazy." And they keep saying that. And I'm like, look, I think it's all connected. And one of the UFO researchers who said something kind of nasty to a colleague of mine in one of the groups we're in, one of the UFO groups, and he said, "Why do you associate with those cryptid nuts? Sounds like a cereal." Folks, when you wake up in the morning and you're really hungry, don't just watch Bigfoot on TV. Eat him. Cryptid nuts, granola, full of crunchy goodness.
I can't stand behind that name.
I like Champ the best. You know, my favorite's Dog Man. You know, it just sounds so stupid.
I like
Cryptid
La
nuts.
Lechusa.
You're like, what is that? Lechusa's my favorite. You know, kids, quit playing with your cryptids and eat. You got to go to school. Look, the thing is, dude, I was sitting there and I tried not to say stuff, but I can't because you know how I am. And I got there and I said, "Cryptid nuts." I was like, dude, how many times have you seen a UFO in the last week, dude? You had like 167 UFOs and they were all attacking you. You're not that important, dude. Okay? I mean, you know, you want to talk about cryptid nuts. Same thing goes on in the ghost community. Cryptid, same thing with the cryptids. Like, that's woo-woo stuff. I'm going to sit up here with my shotgun. There's the Bigfoots out there roaming around. There's no such thing as ghosts or UFOs or the earth. There's nothing. Not even me. I'm gone. You know, I don't understand it. I'm out of here. Chip, chop, chip. William Bedard, thank you for that donation. But the point is that it's compartmentalization, which is hurting us. And when I gave this really blustering little speech on there, and, you know, in your head, you're going like, everybody's clapping and cheering. You're like, like 3 people liked it. It wasn't like as amazing in my head as I thought it would be. And I'm like, and that is why we need to destroy compartmentalization. And there's like the one guy that tries to start the slow clap and then he quits because it sounded better in my head when I was typing it. All right. But then it didn't. So that at the time I was kind of frustrated, but I went back after about a week and there were 17 likes. So at least 17 people agreed with what I said. Now, granted, this group has like 218,000 people, but I did reach 17 people. Slowly but surely, compartmentalization will fall, and we'll be able to get more. Somebody asked me, they said, "Why do you care what the truth is and where it is and where it lies and all this stuff?" And they weren't being snarky. It was a friend of mine who said, "What does it matter? Because these people are all going to believe how they're going to believe, and they're not into this." It's one of my ring brothers from back in the day. And I told him, I said, "Dude, look. It's important to me because for us to advance, I'm going to bring it home to you folks, to advance as a civilization, as a society, to go from being what we are to not having to eat animals and grow food and all that to where we can use infinite energy like Nikola Tesla said, like Nikola Kozarov said, the Max Plancks of the world. They've been saying this for a long time. I don't know if you're a fan of science. Michio Kaku is one of my favorites. I'm a science nerd. I like science. To get from a 0 where we're at to a level 4, as Carl Sagan would say, I mean, we need to advance as a species. And that means you have to go out and you have to discard and disband a lot of preconceived notions that you carry around with you, like baggage. And so, does it work? So you have to be able to see where I'm coming from with this. With this guy having an abduction in a field in Nebraska, Davis, he had an abduction, him and his friend, but it was him that they kept abducting, and he went through, and he said, dude, my life is taking a completely different turn. He's living in New York City now, because he feels like he's safer around a lot of people, that it's harder for them to abduct him. No bull. And I told him, I said, I got a couple friends up there. They live on the Upper West Side. Have you seen them? I don't know if you run into them or not. There's only 10 million people there. Maybe you'll see them. Yeah, because this guy that was talking crap to me on there, he's like, oh, I'll see you around. I'm like, Austin's got 2.5 million people, dude. I doubt we're going to see each other. Okay? That was the good thing about living here. You break up with somebody, I don't got to see that person again. Then you run into them. And then they want to file charges for stalking just because you keep going to the same places. I'm joking, folks. Look, that was actually me filing on them. Here's the point. When you go from being what is essentially a level 0 civilization to being a higher echelon civilization, you're going to have gone through all the growing pains of understanding the world you live in and understand how it works, which means that we have to work together so that you and I can move into this brave new world. Because I personally believe it's biblical too. I know people are going to say, well, you know, whatever. What do you think the new kingdom of Jerusalem is? Well, we have to be ready for it. We have to be ready for it. We have to prepare ourselves. You have to prepare yourself in every facet of your life so that we don't have these aliens, which I do believe they are. I do believe that they exist. I really do. But that they come and they say, wow, you're still killing animals and eating them. And what do we say? Well, they're tasty. Yeah. But what we need to do is be advanced. And now, in order to comprehend and understand the world we live in, we can't even get a handle on what's what. We don't even know what a ghost is or what a cryptid is. We don't even know what an alien is. We don't know what any of this is. But we should be a lot further along than we are. That's my point. Technology is there. But it's being hoarded, it's being extorted, it's being held hostage, you know. Well, Barton just said it. Hey, Barton, 70 years. It's too long.
We've definitely hit an age of stagnation. And I don't know if people even want to change. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's too hard.
Where's the age of invention? We're in one of the most technologically advanced ages ever for us.
Move that way a little bit. There you go.
The problem is I got to pull this.
And then Larry can go.
We're in one of the most advanced ages for us, and we're still falling behind with other inventions. I feel like we haven't really.
Look at hunger. Look at hunger.
I was talking.
You can't even stop that.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and I said, you know, we have everything we need to clothe and feed and house everybody in the house in the world. There's no excuse besides our own incompetence. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just plain and simple, and greed. So, I don't know if we'll be able to escape that, but the moment we do, we'll start moving forward again, and I guess it's just the waiting period for us to start doing that.
Well, if y'all give up on the steaks, make sure y'all let me know, and my freezer's ready, but I'll just take care of that before the end of
the world.
The technology boom does away with my gut.
I don't even know if going to outer space is the correct answer. I think we first have to figure out how to make this place a better. Well, we shouldn't be abandoning our planet because we're failing it. We should be first fixing the planet, and then going to other planets to do the same. I mean, if that's the whole goal, but it just seems like what we're doing now is over-consuming everything, whether it be water, natural resources. I mean, everything. We're just drying out everything, and then we'll be forced to migrate because we destroyed what we were given.
Vote correctly. That'll change some of the stuff, but 2024, we got to get it turned around.
Definitely can do better. We definitely can do better.
We should be doing better. I don't think.
That's my point. When he was telling me that, and I've heard it before, I just started thinking, man, oh man, how do we do better? Well, for your roofing needs, you can start with Fisher & Sons.
I love your cap.
Thank you. I like yours too. But we could do better, folks. We really could. And and folks, I'm not telling you not to eat meat. I'm not a vegetarian. You can look at me and tell I'm not. I'd be lying. I say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian. Oh, I'm a very dainty guy." No, I don't know how to harness energy and make it into. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry.
I'm like, I don't know how to harness energy and make it into what we need. Right? I'm not that guy. That's not my job. Okay, my job is to run the Ho Fuchs Chinese restaurant. Here, let me show you. Does anybody know what that means? Does anybody know what that means? I don't know if anybody knows what that means.
How about we give a prize to the first one that can guess it? What do you think?
Do what?
Maybe should we give a prize to the first one?
Sure. If I can get to and folks, this week I've had gout in my knee, so I couldn't do the mail offs. And I know it sounds like I'm making excuses. Now we have the merchandise, but I couldn't leave. I couldn't do it. And everybody was working. So Lee, if anybody can tell me what Lee Ho Fuchs
Red
is,
Harvest.
what do you say?
Werewolves of London.
Werewolves of London, yes. Yeah, exactly. You get a cap there. If you want a cap or a shirt, let me know. The shirt you'll have to wait till after the conference because they're all earmarked other than the ones for the Patreon. But if you want a cap, I can spare a cap.
Boom.
Red Harvest said boom. Yeah. I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand. There you go. My wife got me this shirt, and I was like, I love this shirt. I was like, that's cool, man. So we get our shirts from a secret place, and they give us a really good deal on them. So, but there is something to be said about what that gentleman told me. And so, there was a lot of other stuff that went on with that guy. It wasn't just that one thing that we talked about. And that's not the only thing that stood out to me. But let me call and get my guest on the line here.
I think y'all are going to be happy with tonight's guest.
Okay, let me stop. Try to call him again. Hold on. Yeah, folks, my knee is hurting so bad.
Hey, Nelly. Yeah, I'm up in the studio. Thanks so much. I made it. Thanks. Thanks, Nelly.
Oh, well, he's not answering. I just talked to him earlier today. Wait for him to message back. Okay. All right. He's ready. He's standing by. Let me call him. Hold on. We got to get back on there. There it is. Go ahead. We'll get it, folks. Don't worry.
He's worth the wait.
Hey.
Hey, what's going on, Lyall?
Hey, not much.
We thought you weren't going to be able to get through to you. We were like, "What is he doing, man? I didn't know he was playing a gig tonight." Jeez,
You forgot about us already?
Ah.
PRT?
No, I didn't. Yeah, no calls popped up on the phone, and then I guess I opened up Messenger, and then I saw the call rang. So mysteries of
Technology?
technology. Yes.
That's what happens when you join the haunted house club. You start
That's
having
right.
weird anomalies happening. Crystal Gonzalez, thank you for that donation. So Lyall, this is Lyall Blackburn, everybody. If you don't know, and if anybody's been living under a rock doesn't know who he is, Lyall is an author, very
Musician.
successful author, and a musician for the band Ghoultown, which I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Lyall, let me ask you a question before we get started with anything else.
Okay.
Yeah. How is it going with the band? Like you said that you just recently got like y'all got booked for your old band to do like another tour.
Well, so Ghoultown is doing a small tour in October, but the other thing was I used to be in a band called Solitude Eternus, which was a doom metal band years ago. We were on Roadrunner Records and did a lot of touring and stuff, and that band has gotten quite a few accolades over the years. And we've gotten offers steadily to reunite and play some of these big metal festivals. So, so we're going to be playing one of those, not till March, but I got a call. So I'm adding that to the plate, I guess.
Yeah. So you got to be one of the busiest people in this field. You and I probably are neck and neck when it comes to that. I recently, I think I had the vid recently, even though I didn't. They said that it wasn't, but I do think that's what it was. Did you have it too? Because I think we've both had it at the same time. The last couple times around. Were you ill? You weren't ill, were you?
A couple of times I've been sick here and there, but surprisingly not that much. Considering this year I think I've done more conferences and appearances as I've ever done. I've been flying around, gone all the time, and somehow, knock on wood, I haven't gotten sick too many times. But
yeah, well, I was wondering because it was really weird. It was really odd. I was like, you had COVID, I had COVID. You had COVID again, I had COVID again. We hadn't even been around each other. And we were talking on the phone about it, and I just thought that it was one of those weird synchronicities. And then,
well, even beyond that,
he was on the show. Hold on, he was on the show October before last with Ken Gerhard and Barton Nunley. And you said on that show, you said that you thought it would be cool to live in a haunted house. And that's why. And so I was just wondering, do you still feel that way, or what? Tell us what's going on with that. I'm curious about
Careful
that.
what you asked for.
Right. No, it's totally cool. I'm all about that. I don't.
having a swallow time.
I say that. I'm sure if I'm suddenly pinned to the ceiling and there's a pentagram and fire and whatever, I may change the opinion, but thus far no. So as you know, last summer you were up at the old house, and I was in the process of moving, and I bought this new house and got everything moved, and sort of found out some circumstances that the previous owner had actually died in the house, and stuff. And so it wasn't long after I was here that some strange stuff kind of started happening, or I thought I saw something, and my radar was up, and so just not a lot has happened, but enough things to where, yeah, there's definitely some weird stuff going on. The first thing, like I said, I just thought I saw some strange movement or shadow briefly, and I was, skeptical. I wasn't sure, so I didn't jump on that. But then one day there was a picture. It was a framed Bigfoot poster, in fact, and I was sitting on the couch, and that thing like flew forward, and I heard some strange, seemed like a bang or a noise, and it I had no explanation for it. I mean, it flew forward in such a manner that it was just sort of physically impossible. That was kind of freaky. And then, um, not too long after that, I had a friend of mine visiting, and her and I were eating and were having some drinks. And we were in the kitchen, and we had been mixing drinks with one of those shaker things, and part of that thing literally just flew across the kitchen, and we both saw it. She saw it, I saw it. The kitchen is pretty big, so I mean, it wasn't just sort of something fell off the counter or whatever. I mean, this thing flew across the room. That was when I was like, okay, there's something going on. And of course, it's great to have a witness to back you up. So that happened, and then recently my daughter reported that she thought she saw something, and like a ghostly figure. I didn't see that, but so that's kind of the gist of what's been going on here. But so I'm enjoying my haunted house.
Let me ask you this though: didn't you say something happened with the washer and dryer too?
Well, yeah, the washer and dryer has been a strange thing. The wiring didn't work for that. I had to rewire it. My washers don't work quite the same, and I'm sure that's electrical related. But yeah, the washer and dryers have moved, and not just from, some of those will shake on the spin cycle, but one day I went in there and just the whole utility room was kind of askew and rearranged. I don't know. I'm thinking, well, did that happen in a wash cycle? I mean, this wasn't right after the wash cycle. I don't know. That was another sort of.
Well, are you saying, Lyall, that your ghost is an interior decorator as well?
I am. That's why
That's exactly what he's getting at. No,
happy
not to make fun though, but I mean,
yeah.
is it you're not to the point where you feel like, hey man, I need to like leave or anything like that, right?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
I'm pretty. None of this alarms me too much. I mean, and I've actually seen a ghost before, and I've talked about that when I was in high school and saw that ghost, the ghost of the kid or whatever that other people had seen. So I kind of familiar, and of course I've spent my life hunting monsters and looking into all this strange stuff. So I'm pretty, stuff doesn't rattle me whatsoever. I've been in the middle of swamps with, you know, deadly venomous snakes and other things. So unless this ghost really amps it up, it would have to do a lot to freak me out. I think it's fine, and we cohabitate, I think.
Well, I mean, what about your daughter? How's she doing with it? Is she doing okay with it? I mean,
Yeah, surprisingly enough, she I was that was most of my concern, is she going to be spooked out about it? But I said, look, this is interesting, and nothing bad has happened, and this person might be, it could be, we're in this person's house, it might be a good presence. And so I tried to just remain positive, and she's had a lot of fun. Like, a friend came over, and they're like, she comes in there, Daddy, can I have all the candles? And we're gonna do a seance. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm, sleepover fun night. So they had a, of course, I'm not sure how effective they were at their little seance, but they're having fun with it. So I just kind of kept it that way. And of course, she's grown up around me, and our whole house is full of monster memorabilia and cryptid stuff. So she's not, she's also just sort of used to it.
If you and the thing is, I had Christopher Garetano. We did a 3-part series, and he's going to unveil his new project, which he's deep in production right now. And he and me were talking, and one of the things it's called A Haunting We Will Go, and he's going to unveil it at our conference. And of course, Lyall, you're going to be there in September, the beginning of September. And we were talking about this, and he had a similar situation. His brother bought a house, and someone died in the house. A man had died. And they feel like that they are being haunted by the ghost of that individual. And so his brother is pretty down to earth. He's not real like, oh, there's a spooky ghost here, nothing like that. But it's very similar. When he was telling me some of the scenarios, it was some of the things that you had told me. And I thought that's part, that's what it is. I mean, that's part of it. And you just, as long as it doesn't escalate, I mean, because I know that me and Barton were talking about the house that he had lived in, and then when I lived in a haunted house, and it was not something, it wasn't like it wasn't just like a mischievous thing where I was just like, I was okay with it. No, I wasn't okay with it. And I didn't like it. And I went through it recently in the place I'm at now, which seems to be, hopefully we've gotten it under control, God willing, but it's not, it's calmed down quite a bit. It's chilled out. It's not like it was, cause we had quite a bit of activity going on, but it's kind of like leveled off. I haven't had hardly anything happen. Thank goodness. But sometimes these hauntings will go in spurts. And so when I was talking to Jason Bland, he's from Paranormal Soup, and me and him were talking in depth about ghosts and hauntings. And one day, and I just remember Jason saying something about like when you're dealing with these kind of things, you just don't know what direction it's going to take and what could happen. It's just like, it's so unpredictable. It's not like anything you've dealt with before. And it is very much like the alien abduction phenomena too. It's like the people that have been abducted, they'll tell me the same thing. They're like, they don't know when they're going to be, taken or something's going to happen. And it all just kind of, to me, it all connects. It just makes sense, and it's like you have a band and that's your thing, and it's a pretty good band. And then you have the Crypted thing, which is kind of your sideline, whatever. Like, this is my kind of sideline to my career. But you could quickly, like go down the rabbit hole into all these other aspects of this because, if you look at it, it is just a honeycomb with just different hallways, into the realm of the paranormal. And like my guest last week, he said that he believes the term paranormal has been hijacked just to mean ghosts. But that's not really what it is. It's anything that's beyond the realm of what is normal. And that's why I named it paranormal, yeah. And so it's pretty much Fortean. It's anything that's, unexplained, weird, and you and I have had some conversations. You did tell me about the ghost you saw when you were young, or when you were a young guy, and it was a child, looked like a child or whatever. Thank you, Kate Hunter, for that donation. We appreciate it. Donations aren't expected, but they are appreciated, and thank you for that. But it was just funny coming from you because we had that conversation with Ken and Barton, and you were like, oh, I think it'd be cool to live in a haunted house. And then you end up living in a haunted house. I mean, and it was like, you weren't planning, like this was not your main, like the way it happened. I'm not going to get into it, but the way it happened, it was kind of like, you were like, man, this is not what I wanted to begin with. And then you end up in this situation. But the main question I have for you regarding this is, did it start off with, it was a dark and stormy night?
In a galaxy far, far away.
Well, of course.
The first time I had you on my show, I had just had Vic Cundiff and Ken Gerhardt on. They were on together. And then Lyall came on, and I gave him an hour. It was my anniversary show, my 1-year anniversary show, I believe it was. And Ken had just gotten off, and Lyall came on, and Lyall was like, it was a dark and stormy. That was like the first thing you said. And I remember now, and I wanted to say something about the book. Now, I don't know if you can see the show or not, Lyall, but this book, Lyall Blackburn, is a very big part of why that was written. And there's a few people in there that I gave credit to. Lyall's one of them. And because the conversation that we had on the way back from the last conference, the first Dogman conference, you and me talked, and I had no idea just how educated you were. You're an English major, and You were like,
Right.
well, my parents wanted me to do something with that, and you go on and you become like a band. You go in a band and do all this crazy stuff, and then you kind of come back and then you start writing books, but they're about monsters. It's like, but you're an
Right.
English major, but then you've made a name for yourself. Like everybody knows who the hell you are. Like you said, you were sitting at a restaurant and somebody recognized you and they started talking to you. And if I show people you or Ken, they recognize you with the hats and all that. They know who you are. You're very well known in this community. But it's just it's weird to think about, like somebody who researches this stuff and does what he does, having had the life that you've had is very interesting. And the conversations we had on the way down there, on the way back, like we just talked, and you told me all kinds of things. But one of the things that stuck with me was about writing a book and how to do it. And one of the things you said if you haven't written a book before, you need to talk to people who have. And that's where you guys came in. And I just want to say I appreciate that. And you were actually set to write the foreword for it. And I'll tell you what happened, folks. He had just written the foreword for Aaron Deese's book. And Aaron, I like Aaron. He's a good friend of mine. We just had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. And I thought it was cool that our books were coming out at the same time. But I thought about you writing that one, and then it was a toss-up between David and Nick on the Bigfoot one. So I thought, why not just have Nick write that one and then David write the other one? So my next book, it's going to be about ghosts. I want you to write the foreword for that one.
Oh, there you go. Well, that'll be cool. I haven't written a foreword for a ghost book. So.
There you go. And so it'll be a first. I'll be like, hey, my friend who's now living, and you could say, hey, now that I live in a haunted house, I feel qualified to write this. And so, but
Right.
I'm looking forward to having you at the conference. What have you been up to lately? Any investigations? You've been out in the field. What have you been doing?
Well, just a little bit of everything this year. I after the move, and then I turned it on with the music this year. I kind of juggle a little bit because the music is a good portion of the income and actually kind of helps fund the adventures in order to research and write the books. Because if anybody's read my books, of course, I like to go to the places where these things have been reported, or whatever creature or small town I'm talking about. So the travel and other stuff has helped, make that possible to enrich the books and the research. So this year has been mostly music, and then there's been just an increasing amount of conferences I've been invited to, which is always great because it seems like, just like you on the show or what have you, you can network with people and you can hear reports and meet people face to face. And so I've kind of been gathering and looking into reports. Oddly enough, I was out in Arizona and I started kind of looking into some subjects of strange sightings of creatures out in the Southwest, and even things like skinwalkers, and I don't know, just something that's kind of been outside my typical sort of eastern, southern swamp and wooded areas of Bigfoots and lizard men and so forth. So most of the stuff I've been doing in a way has just been sort of like collecting these more strange reports, and also kind of just putting my head around what I would want to write next, and the possibility of doing something that's sort of that Southwest kind of coverage, which I haven't done it. And oddly enough, we do the conferences all there. There's so much to the east and the north, and of course Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest. There's not a lot of stuff in the Southwest as far as cryptids. There's some UFO conferences and things. There's Roswell and things like that. But anyway, so I don't know. It's something interesting, and I love doing something that kind of encompasses the creatures and the witnesses, but also the landscape and the Southwest sort of desert, arid, dry area is is a place that is a different environment. So that's kind of what I've been doing in between the other stuff this year.
Yeah.
Hey, Lyall. This is Larry. I just wanted to tell you there's I've got a buddy that's going to Moon Lake at Utah. There's a Bigfoot conference and a treasure hunting event this weekend. And I've got a buddy up at Dulce, and he's going on a Bigfoot expedition very soon. So he's ministered to the Apaches up there at Dulce. So there's a little bit of stuff going out that way.
Well,
Yeah,
I think Lyle's talking about not so much as like the activity, but he's
okay.
talking about the conferences and things like that.
Right.
Because we and Lyle, me and you talked about this on the way back from the conference. We were talking about doing this conference in Roswell. But we didn't want the same problem as we had in Tennessee. Was no airports close by.
Right.
And really, Lyle was just like, well, I'm just going to make everybody travel to my house.
That's right.
And I was like, okay, well, we'll just do that then. And Ken's like, great. I only got 4 hours. You got 3 hours. We're all good. You know?
Right. Yeah. It's a little bit closer than the last jaunt. So
John, it was really just a conversation between me, you, David Weatherly, and Ken and Nick. And we just said, you know what? We're going to do it. We all live. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. We're very selfish people. And I'm a little bit petty. I'm just going to say that. But I admit it. But now, Lyle, one of the things, if you go out there and you want to check out some stuff when you're out there, I know you go to New Mexico and places like that, go to Ruidoso. Because, and I'll give you the reports of some of the people who've given me reports out there. And for me, it always starts the same way. Like somebody from a place will give me a report. Within 2 weeks, I've got 3 other people who've said, hey, I had a weird experience in that area. And Ruidoso is definitely a weird place. Like, I didn't realize, like, it's like 60 miles from Roswell, so you don't think of it. Like, the only thing you think about is that there's a casino and a racetrack there.
Right.
And I remember Mind That Bird or whatever was from there. That was from, that won the Kentucky Derby. It was from there. And that Billy the Kid Casino's right there, right across the hill from Inn of the Mountain Gods. And so it was a really cool place, and I've been there several times and had a good time there, but I never realized the history of it and how much weird stuff is out there, dude. Like, I mean, it was really freaking weird. And I actually went on to the reservation, which there's a sign posted that says you are not allowed, whatever. But I was invited, and I said, hey, I'm invited here. And I interviewed a couple of people who witnessed what they believed was a skinwalker. And here's a weird thing that happened to me and Anthony. We were out there, and we were at the Inn of the Mountain Gods, and we were driving out, and this like really, really light colored elk, like it wasn't white, right, Anthony? But it was almost like a, not albino, but it was light brown, and it was huge, and it jumped out of nowhere, just like out in front of my truck. And when I drive by this spot right there, I just look and I see I don't know where it could have been standing. It was just weird. And then it went across the road real fast. And so I had interviewed a guy from the reservation there about probably, it's been 10 years now. But I had talked to somebody who had told me that they had witnessed a person who could shift into a deer. And that was really weird. And me and Anthony are sitting there talking about it. And while we're talking, this thing jumps out onto the road. And my wife was back at the hotel. She was asleep. She was tired. And we were staying at a different hotel because it was all booked up. And it was the weekend. And we were just passing through, coming back from the Pacific Northwest. And the thing jumps over like right in front of our truck. And I was like, whoa. And we just looked at each other like, did you just see the color of that thing? It looked almost white. And it was just crazy. But we've gotten a lot of weird reports out of there. Another place to visit and check out is Flagstaff. So if you go that way and you're in that area, let me know, because I know some people who've had some weird stuff out there.
That's actually high on the radar because one of my best friends, in fact, the girl, Veronica, that was here that saw the ghostly activity with me, she lives in Flagstaff. And she's she's kind of been, got the radar up. And so I have sort of a base out there. So that's kind of another reason this kind of came up, that I would do something out there, because I was out in Phoenix with her a month ago, and we were talking about some of this. So yeah, I got kind of I guess a home base to work from, and then yeah, Flagstaff. It just seems to keep coming up with. I'm like, here's some more weird stuff that happens in your town. She's like, oh my God, where did I move? She's from Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. Flagstaff is definitely. I was talking to David about that the other day with David Weatherly, and we were having a conversation about strange places. I know you and David talk quite a bit too. We all do, but like the one thing that we were talking about Devil's Backbone, and we definitely want to go out there and do some more research before it gets all built up, and it loses that energy. But there are so many weird places out there, and I think that Flagstaff definitely, you get those ones like Sedona, Roswell, all those ones that everybody knows about. It's like the hotbeds or whatever. But Ruidoso gets overlooked as a place of high strangeness. When I was talking to people at the end of the Mountain Gods at the hotel, they were talking about a ghost that they would see. They would see it in the hallway. It looked like a Native American. And these were other Native Americans talking to him, whatever. And Scorpion, he decides to be like, oh, yeah, Wolf's family's Comanche. That didn't impress them. They're Mescalero. They're like not friends with the Comanches at all. I'm like, yeah, he's drunk.
Oh, well,
He's drunk.
Comanches didn't have many friends.
They didn't have many friends. In particular, Apaches were not necessarily their friends. In fact, the word Apache, what does it mean, Anthony? Oh, you're not mic'd up? Okay. I thought you were. I mean, yeah, enemy, yeah. So, I mean, the Comanches called them that, and it was like, and the one guy, he kind of looked at me and he even kind of frowned, and I was like, this he's drunk. I don't. And Scorpion's like, well, I'm half Navajo, and the guy's like, I'm impressed, whatever. And he walks off, like nobody cares, dude. You're digging the hole deeper here. Okay, you picked like two people who fought with everybody. That's not the. So when we were downstairs, I started talking to the lady at the front desk, and she started talking about ghosts and stuff, and it's a pretty cool area. But that place, and I think Devil's Backbone, and another place is where we're going to be having the conference, which is where you live at Lakeworth. Well, you don't live at Lakeworth.
Very close.
We show up, Lyall comes out of his tent. Hey, y'all. He's shaking out his laundry. Like, saw the goat man earlier. He was over here. He was hungry, boy.
Yeah, that goat man, dude. He just won't shut up. He keeps coming over.
He can't get enough of that monster sauce.
He just comes that monster sauce with the Dinty Moore stew. And I'm just like, I'm out, man. So, no, Lyall doesn't live at Lakeworth. I just sounded weird the way I said that. No, Lyall, like we said before, he lives in a house.
In the area, around.
In the area. But the Lakeworth thing, now, you've covered that before, and a lot of people are asking me that are coming to the conference. They're like, I want to go camp. I want to go do this. I want to do that. Now, we have two Goatmen things going on down there. We have the Alden Bridge, which is, I've been there, and I told a witness the other day who was telling me some weird stuff about a Goatman encounter that he and his wife had. And I saw, with Anthony, my wife and her sister, a blue orb. A blue glowing orb. We could not explain it, and it was just like moving around in the water. There was a couple that was there too, and they were, I don't know where they were from or whatever. I talked to them just a little bit, but they were just like, what is that? And we were all looking at it, and they were taking pictures and whatever. But I mean, what good is a picture going to do? I mean, but still, it was just a weird thing. Now, that is there, and then we have the Lakeworth monster that is not a lake monster per se. Tell the audience exactly what that is, Lyall. The Lakeworth.
The Lakeworth monster is sort of one of Texas' most famous mysterious monsters cases. This started in July of 1969, and on July 10th, 1969, a couple was parked out at Lakeworth at a place called Greer Island, and it was sort of like a lover's lane hangout back then. The area now is kind of built up, but it was very heavily wooded back then, and it's outside of Fort Worth. And they came to a local cafe and called the police and said that some sort of a creature of some sort had jumped on the back of their car, and they had a convertible, and the thing tried to grab the woman and pull her out of the car. And this all happened very fast. It's out in the dark, and it was very frightening. And they described it as sort of upright creature covered in what they thought was white hair, and they said they think it had horns and possibly scales. And so, kind of a strange description, but the police responded and came out there and investigated that. In fact, I know a guy who was literally sitting in that cafe at that time back in 1969, so I got some good insight. But the next day in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, which is the major newspaper here, there's a big headline that says "Fishy man goat terrifies couples parked at Lake Worth."
Fishy man goat.
Fishy man goat. So that's what started. And back then the newspaper, everybody read the newspaper. They didn't have, there was no internet or any of this. There was no paranormal roundtable shows to listen to. You read the newspaper. And so by the following day, there were tons of people out there on site, looking around. They're going to hunt the monster or whatever. And that evening, there were 30 to 40 people gathered there in that same location, Greer Island, near this place called the Pit. And all witnesses saw some sort of similar creature, a hairy, upright thing on two legs, run up on the top of that ridge. It picked up or rolled a tire, and according to the newspaper, it flew like 500 feet above the heads of frightened witnesses, and of course everybody just scattered. And so that was then written about in the newspaper by Jim Mars. If any of the listeners know Jim Mars, of course, he was actually the journalist who got on that story back then. And so it became this just wild thing. And then for months after, people were going out there and looking around, and there were quite a few other people who came forward and said they had seen the creature, sightings, and a woman by the name of Sally Ann Clark actually was a up and coming sort of journalist, and she wrote a book called The Lakeworth Monster that she self-published in 1969, and that's one reason that's kind of maintained as a famous case. And there was actually a photo taken in November of 1969 by a gentleman named Alan Plaster, and this photo, it's kind of a ubiquitous blurry Bigfoot type photo, but it does clearly show a whitish creature standing in a wooded area. And Alan said he and another couple were driving by on Shoreline Road when this thing stood up, and he just happened to have a Polaroid and had the wherewithal to take the photo. Remember, this is 1969, so this is one of the earliest Bigfoot, alleged Bigfoot photos. So, this is all here in Texas. And of course, most of it was called a goat man, it was called all this different stuff, and there was the legends kind of blurred together. But if you look at the descriptions most people gave of it, it was pretty unanimously sort of fit into a more ape-like, a white Bigfoot, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Footprints were found. There was all this stuff. I did on my podcast called Monstro Bizarro, I did an episode on the Lakeworth Monster. And I've also been on Monsters and Mysteries in America and some other things where we interviewed witnesses. But anyway, so it's one that's sort of been, just talked about over the years. Lakeworth now is that area of Greer Island is now the Fort Worth Nature Center. So it is a sanctioned refuge there where you can't camp or do any of that there, but you can pay and go in and look around. They got buffalo out there and stuff, and you can still go right there to that pit where the where the famous tire throwing incident occurred. And I had a witness that saw me on the television show and came to me and said he had been standing up on the ridge that night. He saw whatever it was, and it was definitely something upright, and he didn't feel it was a human. So that was cool insight. So yeah, we're going to be the Dogman Conference is going to be pretty darn close to Lakeworth. So if anybody's interested in that, you can actually go out. Like I said, it's like $5 or something to get into that nature center, and you can go down to the site where all that stuff went down all those years ago.
Wow. And are you planning on going out there, Lyall?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to whatever. If there's time to do it amongst all the other festivities, but
Yeah.
but
I think we should all
certainly,
go out there and with clubs, sticks, and whatever weapons we can gather, and let's see if we can get this creature. Let's take it down. Let's do this. We just go out there and end up killing an innocent animal. Way to go. Way to go, Lyall.
Hey, nah, man, I'm friendly with it. And the goat man's cool. He comes to my tent.
He comes and hangs out. He comes out. He comes for the Lyall, the hot sauce. How is that doing anyway? That's another venture of yours. Is the hot sauce? How's that?
Yes.
How's that going?
Yes, Monster Sauce sells well. It's just one of those random things. I sort of started as I thought it would be fun, something to have on the table when I do appearances, and I like hot sauces, so why not have my own? So that's turned into three different flavors, and it's possibly my top selling thing these days. So
isn't that weird how that works? Like you start off, like I started off, like working downtown at a nightclub, and then I ended up getting into security, and I thought, man, security doesn't pay enough. And then when I got my own company, and then I started hustling, then it was like, oh, it does pay. And somebody asked me one day, they were like, did you ever think you'd be a security professional? I said, heck no, that's not something I aspired to do when I was a kid. And they asked me what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to play baseball. I want to play football. I never said I want to own a security company. That's, it just sort of happens.
I don't want to own anything. I just want to guard other people's stuff.
I just want to live at Lakeworth in a tent. That's all I'm doing. But no, it's like weird, like what ends up making it and what doesn't. It's almost like I don't know, there's some cosmic force that just decides, God or whatever, it decides your fate. And you just, like you were saying about the hot sauce, like that wasn't something that was, that you were planning on making it like, oh, I'm going to make it big in this, and when I even remember when you started it, and you were saying like, oh, it's just something I'm doing, whatever. And now it's your biggest seller.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of it, so I can understand why.
Well, I just used it 2 days ago on a soup.
Me too.
Yeah. I was eating chicken and rice soup, and is that with no sodium. It was very bland. And my wife's like, which sauce do you want? I was like, give me Lyall's. So I was just putting it on there, and I was looking at it, and I was like, wow. It's just weird. I use like his hot sauce like all the time. It's like it becomes a staple of it because it's not real high in sodium, and so I can use it. And you don't need a whole lot of it. It's
versatile. That's
yeah. Now I like the red one better. Well, you said you had 3 flavors now. What are they?
The original Rogue Red chili, which is that kind of milder universal one, and then the green sauce, the Swamp Sensation, a little hotter, and then I've got the new one, the Howling Habanero.
Oh,
I gotta try that.
That one sounds. I hope it's hot. Is it hot? Really hot? Or?
It's hot. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's hot.
Where can I get these, Lyall?
You can get them from my online store, or they're carried in quite a few retail outlets and most of the Bigfoot museums around the country, the International Cryptozoology Museum, Monster Mart in Arkansas, stuff like that. Museum of the Weird in Austin carries all of them as well.
Need to get them in HEB.
Oh man,
yeah, if I could. It's a big thing to get something in a grocery store, and well beyond my what time I have working so many jobs, but yeah, it's fun to do. So I just kind of do it, and people enjoy it. And the habanero is like probably become the best seller. So it's all good. I'll have some at the Dogman. conference.
Yeah,
of
great.
course.
the last time I saw you, Lyall, you were in San Antonio when Ryan Edwards almost died on the railroad tracks.
Oh my God.
So
Dracula on the rails.
Dracula on the
I
railroad.
love Ryan.
Oh
I
my
just
God.
talked to him yesterday. He's like a good kid, and he's a good author. I mean, he's got a bright future in this field, and he's young.
Yeah.
He's a young blood. But we were eating dinner, and Lyle's like, "I'm gonna write this song." Him and David were like writing lyrics on a napkin. You know, like here we go. Dracula on the rails. Ryan got out with that flowing jacket, or whatever. I was like,
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It was just
crazy.
so bizarre. Like you just on the railroads and the cops and stuff. And
he's lucky to be alive, but it was so funny when Lyall goes, he gets out of the car like Dracula. And David's like, I was getting an idea for a song, you know, like, write it down. We all laughed so hard. I nearly choked. But yeah, it was, I saw you at the conference and I picked up some more hot sauce from you because whenever I see you out, I'm just like, hey, there's Lyall. I'll just buy some hot sauce from him right there. I bought like 2. And my wife's like, you're going to use all that. So I went back, like 6 bottles of each. But yeah, here's Lyall's latest book, Texas Bigfoot. This is the latest one. And I'm proud to say I was at your house and we were shooting the breeze, and Lyall had just gotten the proof in for this book. And he was opening it up, and he showed us the proof, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And now here it is a year later, and here's my book, Werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena. And then, of course, my Bigfoot book will be coming out about a week and a half after that one. But, yeah, so it's really cool, and I appreciate you talking to me because you did talk to me, and you said, I think podcasting, if I remember the conversation correctly, you were like, you're the greatest podcaster in the world. You can't stop. If you stop, I don't know what I'll do. I might jump off Alden Bridge. And I was like, Lyall, don't do that. Come on, man. Get a hold of yourself. I'll be back. And then, you know, that's a dramatization, folks. I'm taking a little bit of liberties.
Lightly, though.
Yeah. But, you know.
just a slight dramatization.
It's a slight dramatization. And I was like, I don't know what I'll do, man. But, you know, now Lyall was talking to me about writing, and I have a renewed respect for authors because this process was not easy. And people always say, well, I'm going to be an author. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I'm going to go be a Major League Baseball player. I think the Astros or the Rangers I'm going to try out with them. They're mulling it over. I threw a few pitches, you know.
That sounds like quitter talk.
yeah.
You will be an Astros player.
I'm going to take care of it. Don't worry. It's in the works. I'm also going to be trying out for the Cowboys. I'm only 48, so we'll see what happens. Them in Tampa Bay, you know, I've got a few offers.
They're fighting for me right now.
I got a few irons in the fire there at the NFL and the Spurs. I've been thinking about going into basketball. And people say things like that, though. And me and you, Lyall, we're talking about it. We're joking about it. But it's like people will do that. They'll just be like, I'm going to write a book. I'm like, really?
You're right. I mean, it's something that people can do because you can just, you can get your computer and write a book, but there's definitely it's a far reach between the skill and the patience and to write a good book. And that's the thing. People always ask me, hey, you know, why'd you get into, do you write these books because you had an experience? I'm like, no, actually, I am. You know, I've been a writer I wrote for Rue Morgue Horror Magazine, wrote for music magazines, and done all this other stuff sort of in between the music as I went. And I also have a degree in English. I said, I'm more of a writer who is interested in these subjects. So this is what I chose to write about. But I'm coming at it from, you know, people ask me what you do. I'm like, I'm an author and a musician. And so I try to, you know, put up my all into these books. And so now, you know, you well know we had that conversation about what it takes to do a good book. I mean, and to try to accurately capture, you know, what's going on in the fields we investigate. So, and after you've done some books, I know, you know, like it's not an easy thing. And so, but more power, people that have done books and start out with one, you know, and you read it and you're like, yeah, man, this is awesome. And you know, that person's going to write more. And like David Weatherly, we met before we just as we were writing our first 2 books. And, you know, and you don't really know, we talked a lot about it. And then when I read Black Eyed Kids of his, and I came out with Beast of Boggy Creek, it was like, oh yeah, dude, we did it, you know. So it was neat to kind of go that journey together. So David and I have been really good friends ever since, because we kind of started this authorship at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say he's a friend of mine too, and he just celebrated his 60th birthday at my house. I thought that was pretty cool. He turned 60 talking about, you know, the Devil's Backbone, which was pretty cool. And yeah, he doesn't like the Black Eyed Kids moniker. I was actually talking to a couple people for my book. I was interviewing them, and they were like, when I said something about David Weatherly, and I can't remember what we were talking about. Oh, we were talking about the Bear Man, and David had filled in a report, and the girl, she's a friend of Bettina Moss's, and she's like, oh, the Black Eyed Kids guy. And I was like, if David heard you say that, he would not be happy, because he's so tired of being called the Black Eyed Kids guy. Like, you know, it's like he's written so much now. He's got so many. He's a very prolific author, and he's written all these books, and he's doing state to state. I mean, he's determined to finish, and it's a nonstop project, just ongoing. But he did take time out to write the foreword for my book, which I appreciate. And it was his book was, or I mean, his foreword was good. I liked it. It was nice. You know, he got personal with it, and I appreciate that. And when I reached out to Nick and I'd asked him, hey, I said, I want you to write my foreword. And Nick's such a nice guy, and we were sitting there joking and talking. And I was talking about some of the funny stories that we had. One of them where Nick had told me, I think it was a couple years ago, but we were talking, and he said that this, you know, we get these people all the time, like Ken said, you know, they're like, hey man, I got a Bigfoot on my property right now. You need to come over here to Mahia and check it out, you know. And it's like, oh really? It's just there right now. And so they do that to us too. They're like, you know, come out here to Westlake. There's a dog man running around. It ate a cat, you know, whatever.
Where is it at? In the creepy alley right there. If you just go behind.
Yeah, go behind Leho Fuchs, and it's right there. You know, it's eating. So I'm sitting here going like, okay. So, you know, but Nick, he's such a nice guy. Like Ken, me, Lyall, David are all kind of be like, well, okay, whatever. But Nick's so nice. He doesn't want to be rude, you know. He's like a just quintessential nice guy. Like and he said, this guy told me he was a werewolf, you know. Like, he drives a forklift. I'm like, well, everybody's got to have a job. It's like, but Nick is so nice. He's just like, I didn't know what to tell him, you know. I was like, well, you know, just don't do it. Change in front of me, you know. Like, I'm trying to work.
He's hilarious because he's super nice, as you said, but he's also brutally honest in a way that's like, innocently.
Yeah, he's unintentionally funny.
Yeah,
and it's like, dude, he just cracks me up because he said that, and I was like, well, what'd you tell him? You know, and he goes, well, I don't know. I just kept an eye on him. I was like, we're this guy, you know. And it's like, dude, but Nick is such a nice guy. And so when I gave him the PDFs to read the Bigfoot book, he came back and said, oh, man, this is awesome. It's good. So I've got him and Barton Nunley now who have both read and said that they think it's good. Couldn't be happier. I mean, I did these interviews and did all this, you know, whatever, and had people helping me do the interviews and getting the information, and we all kind of worked together. But it's something that I'm proud to be able to put my name on these. I got a little bit of tweaking to do. This one is the proof for the werewolves and the dogman phenomena, but it's going to be, it's going to be, I'm not done. And I did have to take some out of it because I was like, oh man, I'm already going to have controversy with the Bigfoot book because of, you know, Claudia Ackley. But now I'm going to be, you know, I had to take a little bit out of the dogman book because I just didn't want the heat. I was like, you know, and it was against advice, and I was told by Ken and a couple other authors, they were like, don't do it. You know, just leave it in there. Let the chips fall where they may. But you know what? I've got enough already to be, you know, so I just didn't want to do that. What is your next project? Are you working on another book right now? You don't got to tell us what it is, but are you working on something right now, Lyall?
No, I've been full-time recording and doing the new Ghoultown album, booking the tour, and I got a Ghoultown lyric book coming out, which I just finishing that, which David Weatherly wrote the foreword, incidentally. And in the middle of all this, and I'm rehearsing for that other band, but I've written the next Ghoultown album, and I'm doing music for a horror western video game, to which, get this, David Weatherly and I have been writing the Ghoultown album. He's been writing lyrics. I've always done all the lyrics, but after more than 110 songs, he's come up with some great stuff. So we've been co-writing songs. We co-wrote a song for the video game, and I just finished an entire writing all the demos for a new album that we're going to do starting next year. So David Weatherly is like literally now like writing songs with me for Ghoultown. So that's totally unexpected and been really fun. So I'm pretty much been working on all that, which is more than a full-time job unto itself. But like I said, in the middle of this, I've kind of been taking reports and like I said, I'm formulating the idea for something on the Southwest as far as the next book. So, but I'll have to. But I don't have any time to work on that because once I start those books, I just get hyper focused. So I need to have a clear plate. So I do this about every 2 years. I'll write a Ghoultown album, put that out, and then go and do a book. So I kind of go back and forth. So
one every 2 years, God, slacker. Jeez.
I know.
Man.
Well, it takes me about 6 months, but in between, yeah, with a full, the band is beyond a full-time job, and we're about to do tours, and we just got signed to a major booking agency. So just that alone is a full-time job. So everything else is.
Well, not to mention raising a daughter is a full-time job as well.
Yeah. It's not
You
easy.
definitely have your hands full.
You got your hands full.
I'm a single dad too. So it's, but all, so people are like, oh, how do you do all that? It's like, well, if I'm not doing something with her, I'm working on either the music or the monsters. And because to me, it's not work, it's all fun. So it's just like, how much of this stuff can I possibly do? So, and then we're looking, if these tour dates go well with Ghoultown, then we're looking at a full U.S. tour and probably a European tour. So that'll push me into 2025 probably.
Wow.
So,
and if you do, another thing I talked to you about, which I thought would be right up your alley, and we've talked about this too, and it's also something me and David talked about. But earlier I had asked you the question, and not on the show, but off air, or whatever, what you thought about the untimely deaths and the weirdness surrounding the music industry. I posted something on my Facebook. And of course, people are going to go, that's stupid, cause whatever. But it was about Elvis. And of course, I don't know what your thoughts are. I wanted to kind of get you on here and just, you're a musician. So, you can give me your thoughts.
Yeah. And when you initially, we talked about this one day, I think when I was driving and I was talking to you on the phone, and you were mentioning like just that whole phenomenon of musicians dying at the age of 27 and dying young and all of that. And is there something, otherworldly about that, or is it just, we're seeing things into it? But, rolling that around, it can kind of go either way. It's like there is something strange often about that, the world of musicians and just that whole creative process and things, that is, you can't often just define it easily. And or it could be that musicians live fast and hard, and I can attest to that. I can't believe I'm alive. I could write another book about the crazy stuff that went on tour and the lifestyle, because I started, when I was on an album when I was a senior in high school and already in bands before that and playing opening for fairly big bands in high school. And then in my 20s, we got signed to Roadrunner Records, which is a huge worldwide heavy metal label, and immediately on tour and tour buses and all over Europe and all this. And I say, the fact that I live past 27 is I can't believe it, because definitely that lifestyle
Takes a
is
lot out of
not,
you.
you're just partying and drinking, and you end up in bizarre situations and you meet wild, crazy people. I mean, there's that story about the, this is a whole nother sideline, which I won't go, but what was that, Josh, about the vampire thing?
Yeah.
Which really was a story about this girl that I kind of referred to as a witch or something, who tried to stab me in France. That's just a whole bizarre thing. But I guess the point I'm making here is that it doesn't surprise me that a lot of musicians burn out fast and die young, because that lifestyle, especially in rock and roll and stuff, will promote those kind of situations. But I mean, but if you look at the numbers of musicians and how many there are, most of them live a long life. Or they're like Keith Richards or something. They defy, they defy all odds. There's many more that just live to an old age, or they sort of disappear, and you go, whatever happened to that person? And they may be living off the royalties from, like the guy who wrote, the songwriter for that song "Eye of the Tiger." I mean, you're like, who is that guy and what's he doing? Well, dude, he's still living off that, the income off that, mechanical royalties. But but it's certainly a phenomenon that's super interesting, because when you get famous rock stars and mysterious deaths, Jim Morrison, Elvis Presley, that is fodder for some really cool investigation, and just kind of looking at those, each case, and is, saying, is there something more mysterious about that?
I was going to suggest, like if you wanted to do a project about that, because, I know you got a lot going on, and I got a lot going on too. But if we could just put a little bit of time, here and there, probably stitch it together, because it's something that I've been interested in for a long time. The number 27, if you break it down, it equals 9, which is the final number. It's the end. Some people will say that 11 is actually, but that's not correct. That's not numerology. That's actually just somebody that added that on there. It's 9 is the master number. And it does have a lot to do with the Hollywood weirdo stuff that goes on. And in the music industry, if you look at musicians now, these high level, high profile musicians on these record labels, they're worth more dead than alive. I mean, it's true. They actually have like these weird things where people can buy and invest in them, like any musician, like Snoop Dogg, right? I don't know if he does it, but I know a lot of musicians do it, where they can actually, you can go and invest in their whatever. You can buy like their stock or whatever. And if they were to die, their music is going to go through the roof. Like when Kurt Cobain passed, it was like Nirvana was like, yeah, we know who Nirvana is, but then it was like he died, everybody knew who Nirvana was. They were like bigger than Pearl Jam for a while there, just because he died. So like in someone's death, there's all this, generates all this buzz, and then you got all these weird things like Tupac releasing like 3 albums or something after he passed. And subsequently, I was actually in Las Vegas when he was shot, which was really weird. I was actually there in the city. I was staying in Vegas at that time. And it was really weird. Like everybody was like, Tupac, he has like this aura, and everybody's like, oh, well, he's not really dead. But they were going to kill him. So supposedly he faked his death. And that it was this whole fake thing that went on between him and Sean Combs. And so then you go down the rabbit hole with this whole weird, and then you start uncovering people dying at the age of 27, Jim Morrison, all these other people. And you start to wonder, like, what is the significance of that? The thing with Elvis, people have been trying to say for a long time that Elvis wasn't dead. And then people would say, well, what would be the purpose of faking his death? Well, for one thing, you get out of the limelight and then you don't get whacked. You know what I mean? You don't get killed. I mean, there was a lady not too long ago that was trying to say that, I thought it was Michael Jackson, it was actually Prince. And she said that Prince was next door to her, living next door to her, like in some small town. I don't remember, like in Wyoming or something. And she said that. I mean, everybody, it makes you laugh, right? At first you're thinking it's crazy. But if you think about it, and you're the next person that's going to be sacrificed by these lunatics. I mean, if you think about it, why wouldn't you try to fake your death? Why wouldn't you try to get out of there? And why wouldn't you go and maybe go, like Anthony, you were saying, witness protection program? I mean, but there is so much weirdness. Thank you, Michelle Collins, for that donation. We greatly appreciate it. It's all going toward the conference. But there's so much weirdness surrounding the rock and roll scene, and all the way back to Robert Johnson and the Crossroads.
Right?
And you and I were talking about that, Lyall, and I just thought that would be a project that'd be right up your alley. If you and I and David weren't so dang busy, I would say that would be a very good project to take on, and talk about this. We could each contribute something, to a book, and just write about it, because the only book that I've read that really covers this in any kind of, and didn't go really deep enough for me, was a book called Hellhounds on Their Trail. Look that up, Tony Antonio. And I don't remember the name of the guy who wrote it, but at last I saw it was like out of print. And I thought that's odd, because it's, it's such a weird subject. But I thought, man, you could cover this knowing coming from your perspective. You, Ken, and Barton were all musicians. It's really weird. Y'all are all the same age and all musicians too.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are all writing books now. But I thought, it would be something that would be a project like you and I and maybe David or Barton or somebody, we could probably put together. Who wrote it? Who wrote that book?
Hellhounds on Their Tail, Tales from the Rock and Roll Graveyard, from R. Gary Patterson.
Gary Patterson. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, that book, and I read that book years ago, and it was fascinating. But like I said, it didn't go deep enough. And now there's all this other stuff that's come out, like with the passing of, was it Sinead O'Connor? She died recently. And then, what's her name? Dolores O'Riordan. And then you had Chester from Lincoln Park. And then and they said it was a suicide, which was really weird. And then they had Chris Cornell passing, and you got all these people passing. And yeah, you can chalk some of it up to like, well, there's a fast lifestyle. I lived a fast lifestyle when I was young because I ran a nightclub, but that's what I did. But but there's some of it that gets a little too weird, and then you're really kind of going like, what's going on here? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why do these people die young all the time? And why did so many of them die at the age of 27?
That's what's odd to me, because coincidences don't work like that, where like that consecutively. There has to be something else going on when it's that consecutive. And it's like, musicians, like especially that's what's really odd about the whole thing right there. And I think like that's what, if you focus on, you'd be like, there has to be something going on there. And then when you think about like, oh, it's a fast lifestyle, it doesn't really explain a lot of like the different variations of the way they died and stuff like that. But the only real thing that ties them together is the age.
Yeah, I think somebody should, would have to do, and somebody may have done this, like some statistics on music. I guess musicians of a certain level of fame that died in their 20s, is to calculate up how many died at, what ages. Because of course we focus on all those major ones that died at 27, and those are surely some of the most iconic. What is the distribution of deaths among famous musicians? And that would help, provide statistics for the if that's an anomaly, it's going to stand out. And you say, well, look, they're dying at all ages, but look at how many died at 27. You can see that peak, sort of like a graph. And if statistics reinforce that, then you're really onto some weird stuff, because yes, that suddenly backs it up, I guess.
Yeah, and especially if you look at it like even just outside of it just being spooky, and you could just be like, what about this lifestyle that, at whatever age, that whatever the statistic shows, why is it at this age where they seem to give up and burn out, or something traumatic or horrible happens to them? Like, what is the reasoning for that? Even just outside of it being spooky, or a conspiracy theory, or whatever, just like it'd be an interesting topic to delve into.
Yeah, that they just simply died at age 27 of anything, and almost, you see this big peak. Like, why would that be an age to die from whatever? Much less, yeah, like you say, the spooky ones.
And it would be even, you could even compare it to like other famous professions, like, comedians, actors, and be like, why is it about this specific lifestyle where they are, in fact, ending up dead at this age, and or whatever age that the statistic would show. I think I saw someone say on there the 28 Club is what they call it.
Right, yeah, because if you looked at some other subset of entertainment, like, say, comedians that are super famous, what age did they die, and if, does that correlate with 27, or is it, 42 or whatever? Yeah, and if it's isolated only to rock and roll, then it's even weirder, because
that's true. Yeah.
Why that one? You would think it would be an even distribution across
all genres,
of entertainers, actors, and who knows. But yeah, that's kind of like Josh said, if you wanted to go deep dive or do more in depth. Incidentally, on this new Ghoultown album that David and I have been writing, we have a song called Hellhounds, which is we co-wrote about sort of that thing. So
that's kind of an interesting relationship. You guys, you started out in the band, and then you were like, I'm gonna do writing. So you started writing books, and then you met David, and now you guys are come back full circle writing songs together now.
Yeah, it's really weird, and so far we've written and recorded the song that's going on that video game, but that hadn't been released. But the new album, we have the Best of the Dead West, which is a Ghoultown album with remasters from our catalog from 2006 forward. There's a bonus track on there, and David wrote the lyrics. It's sort of a gunfighter story song. So I'll have this out here in about a month. That's the first time people are going to hear David and I on the collaboration of music. So yeah, it'll be cool.
Sounds exciting. Are you allowed to mention the video game name at all?
Yeah, it's called Blood West.
Blood West. Okay, I'll check that out.
You can see previews like on YouTube. I'm not a gamer, so of course I'm familiar. Like people have always said, man, you guys, your music, Ghoultown should be in Red Dead Redemption, that game. Of course, they've never come to me and asked me, so but this is the company here is called Hyper Strange, and they're out of Denmark, and they're doing sort of a horror western undead cowboy kind of game. From what I've seen, is super cool and kind of first person shooter, I guess. And they're doing a video, like an animated video for the song we wrote, which is helping to promo the game or something. So yeah, I think that's coming out.
I'll keep an eye out there on it just for the soundtrack alone, I guess.
Yeah, so that was cool. It's like, it's always fun little projects. And yeah, I'd worked up one song and sent them a demo, because I had to create a demo and say, okay, is this what you're looking for? David and I did one song, and they're like, well, we love it, but it's too fast. We need something slower. We want it more about the lyrics of the video game. So David and I are like, okay, fine, we'll put that on the next Ghoultown album. So David and I had to write another song. Okay, now we got to come up with another really good song. So we did, submitted that, a little demo, and they loved it. So So yeah, David and I quickly were working fast to get these. So in between writing cryptid books, taking reports, doing conferences, we're sitting here writing music for a video game.
Yeah. So I'm gonna write a song now. I'm gonna get on that tomorrow. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, okay,
I'm just gonna
yeah.
go write a song.
Because
Why not?
you ain't got nothing, you ain't got much going on. Yeah, man, just start.
I'm gonna be calling you every day now, Lyle. I know you're busy and you got stuff to do, but I need your advice. I'm writing a song, so
I wrote 2 words so far, and
Bon Jovi's mulling it over. They're waiting to see if they're gonna take it. I don't know what's gonna happen. I got
Right.
plans, and it
Well,
seems about that silly sometimes when people come to me with stuff. They're like, "I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that," and yeah, if you take the advice, you know. But like we were just talking about David, it's like he always says, just because you can don't mean you should. It's like you could do anything if you really put your mind to it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be good.
right.
Play to your
Or just,
strengths. It's like, dude. So
or
this thing that we were talking about, what are your thoughts on like? And I don't want to get too far into it, but like you get these stories from people, about the music scene, the music industry, and them saying that they have to do this and sell their souls and all that to make it really big, to be like, out there in LA on that scene. Do you think there's any credence to that? What do you think?
well, I mean, I don't think there's anything to physically signing a deal with the devil
No.
per se, but and some of this is intermixed with, I suppose, urban legend and the crossroads, and Robert Johnson, sort of that. The rock and roll, the blues, the rock and roll, it's the devil's music. So surely, if you're successful, you must have worked a deal with the devil, and it's sort of like that sort of timeless, um, I don't know, mythology that builds around this. But that being said, I mean, a lot of rock bands, famous heavy metal bands and stuff, while they're not devil worshippers or any of that business, they are spending time in with dark subjects, occult subjects, violent subjects, and there's a certain amount of that can bleed over into your life. Whether you believe in the devil or you're not, you're not here. I'm signing in blood on this piece of paper, but you are entertaining those subjects and darkness that penetrates people's psyche in whatever form they want to represent that, whether that's the devil or whatever. Yeah, it can have an effect, and it very well could result in um, your life going in a different direction, or even success with people who gravitate towards those dark corners of the world. I don't know, but I've written several Ghoul Town songs about deals with the devil and being cursed and other things, but
Drink with the living dead.
of course, yeah, Living Dead and all those things, especially Drink with Living Dead. I mean, it that song has been so popular that it I mean, for the dark subject it has paid off. And who
Yeah, I think you
knows,
have like 20 million downloads on there or something, didn't you? On like YouTube or something. I saw it the other day.
Yeah, I want to say it's just the video is 23 million,
Yeah. My
but
God. So it's even gotten
collect
further.
collective streams and downloads is it's more than 50 million right now. So which is, man, if every song had that, I would be a rich rock star,
You
Bill.
wouldn't even be having time to like do
Talk to us.
the monsters or be sitting there talking to us about your books and all that. You just be like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
man. I gotta
Well,
go swim with Aquaman later. I don't got time.
right. So, but thankfully, I mean, Drink the Living Dead is, I always joke that's when I'm in the house, I'm like, thank God for that song, because that's how I afforded this house. But it's done well. So I can only imagine if you've had I mean, we're not the biggest band and we got a lot of fans, but if you were doing stuff in the hundreds of millions and did that over and over with a bunch of songs, good Lord, it would be a lot of income. So, although a lot of that stuff, one reason I've been successful at Ghoultown, and this kind of plays into the fact that we self-publish our books and do that stuff. I was on Roadrunner Records. I never made more than a couple of $1,000s for all those albums we recorded, and they've been since reissued on special editions and stuff. I never saw any money, none. And with Ghoultown, I mean, it's mostly been on my own label. I've been able to make a living at it, even though we're not on a big label, because I own all of it. So there's a huge difference in even big name artists who have deals with record labels. Is they may be selling tons of albums, but they're not getting all of the,
No.
And I've known plenty of famous guys and famous bands, and you're amazed to realize, wow, they're working at another job. They can't make enough because the record label's taking all the money.
Yeah, and people
Crazy.
think that you become rich by becoming an author, and that's. I didn't write the books so I could become rich. I just wrote the books because I thought it was something I needed to do. But it was like people do that, and they're like, "Oh, you wrote a book. It must be rich," And so the people will run out and write a book because they think that that's going to happen for them. But that's so rare. I mean, it's like, first of all, to write a good book, something that's not just mediocre or whatever, you gotta have something in it. I mean, that's the thing. And if you're doing a show or a podcast or whatever you're doing, you got to have something. And these people who will bash you or say something about your whatever, or think that you're rich and, whatever, they obviously don't live in the same reality we do. They don't see how much work it goes into all this, and they don't see how much money it pays you compared to how much you do. I mean, it's like you feel like you're doing all this work and you're not getting a substantial amount of money for it. It's just not. It's the money's not there. So when someone does make it big, people are like, well, what did they do to get there? And sometimes, I mean, I think it does work that way. I think some people do make deals. Now, when we say the devil, that can mean anything. There's a number of demonic entities that could represent. It could just be worship of money. It's whatever. But I mean, it depends on what your God or who your God is or whatever it is. Because, I've heard so many stories and read so many, things that people have told me. They've worked roadies and different people who've worked for different bands and different, rappers and people. I've talked to one of them's bodyguard. They were here. They were from Houston. He was here playing a show, and he said that his guy that he worked for, I don't want to say the guy's name on the air, but he said he literally practiced Santeria, which is not the same as Santa Muerta, but he said, yeah, he practices that. That's what he does. Like, he's really into that. And so, you start to wonder, like, are these people, are they getting some of their power from somewhere? But like you said, you're tapping into an energy, and you're dealing with some pretty bad subjects. Some of these things that they talk about, shooting, killing, whatever. I mean, you take a gangster rap or you take a band like Slayer, you're dealing with some pretty dark stuff. I mean, there's some pretty bad energy out there, and you're invoking that.
Hey, Wolf,
Absolutely.
back on the subject about the devil. It was for years he was happy trying to convince everybody that there wasn't a devil. So, but right now in today's society, he's revealed, and so everybody's got to make that choice between the devil and the Lord. And I just need to throw that out there right now, because the devil, he's not hiding. It's all in plain sight now.
Yeah, and it's not, to me, in the way I believe, it's not cut and dry as like, it's not as simple as the devil. When people say the devil, that there are particular entities that they serve. And I said something to someone years ago. We were watching this. I wasn't watching. It was on TV. And there was an award show. And there were these people, and they were like, I want to thank God. And this particular person was naive enough to believe that they were talking about the same God that I talk about, that I serve. And I was like, that's not who they're thinking. More than likely, they're thinking Moloch. I mean, and she was like, no, they're not. I'm like, yeah, they are, because they don't say specifically who their God is. They just say, I want to thank God. And then, you had Ricky Gervais get up there and say, get up here and accept your word, thank your God, and go back, go sit down.
I mean,
he made that joke, but he says your God, as in,
When you saw Chris Pratt receive an award, and he said, I want to thank my Lord Jesus
Savior
Christ.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
He was very
he
specific.
received backlash from it because he was too specific for some reason. And it's like that shows you all you need to see right there.
Yeah, that a lot of these people are doing what they are serving some sort of dark energy or entity, or dark energy producing entity that gives them this power. But I believe when you accept that, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, you do burn out young, you do burn out quick, and a lot of times that flame burns real bright, but it's real short, boom, and it goes out. I didn't think that I was going to be alive past the age of 30. I didn't think I'd be 25, and then 30, I was like shocked, and then 40, and then I'm almost 50. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm still here. I think we all kind of had that. I know you, Lyall, and me have talked about life in the fast lane. It just happens. It's just, and you're surprised that you're still around. But there is a flip side. There's another side to all of the fame and fortune of these people, and I just thought, that would be. You could go as far and as deep as you wanted to in that subject, and it would just be like, who knows how far down the bottom really goes. Probably further than most people really want to go. It's, I'll say this on the record here. I don't think Chester and Chris were killed. I mean, I don't think they killed themselves.
I don't think Chester's bandmates think that either. I mean,
no. Well, the guy from Smashing Pumpkins, I don't know if you know this, Lyle, but he claimed, the lead singer, what's his name?
Billy Corgan.
Corgan. He claimed in an interview that he saw a person change into a reptilian, and that's not like a unique thing. That's not like something people as nobody's seeing that. No, it's happening a lot. You're getting these people with these weird coming up with these weird things, and I don't think all these people, they don't even know each other. It's not like they got together and said, "Hey, let's make up a story." It's what's happening. And I really think that he was being honest about that. I think he did see something, and I think that happens more often than we think it does, or that we know it does. I have a question for you. Now, you told me, I asked you one day, we were having a conversation, and it was informal talk or whatever, and I said, let me ask you a question. I was like, what's the weirdest report that you have fielded? And and it's funny because we're talking about the devil. Tell the audience, Lyall, what the weirdest report was.
Yeah, the devil one was pretty weird. There's been a few. There was sort of a triangle thing that walked across a path in front of somebody, like a shimmering, translucent thing, and then a few of those ubiquitous, upright bipedal entities that are spooky. But I got one in Fort Worth once. In fact, it was when I was hanging around with some of the guys. That guy I talked about was familiar with the Lakeworth monster, but this woman came up and said, I don't know how this fits in, but I had this extremely weird and scary incident in Fort Worth years ago, and she lived near this section which has a big park system and stuff, and back in that time it wasn't quite as crowded there, and she said she was hanging out there around 10 p.m. or something after dark, and with a friend, and they had been talking out there, and they were leaving, and they were in their car and just about to drive off when they saw this guy approaching, and they said, you don't want to be approached by people in a place like that anyways. But she said, so it was a little creepy, and she said when he got closer, they noticed that he was very odd. There was something strange about him. First off, his clothing was kind of shiny, but just very bizarre material. She's like, I don't know what he's even wearing or why he's wearing this. And then they described him as being kind of had a beard and just something off about the physicality, I guess, of this person. And it's been a minute since I thought about this report, but he was speaking to them, asking them some strange questions, and the woman, and she was very sincere, and even could tell she was a little bit freaked out just even telling me, but they got the vibe that for some reason that they had literally met the devil and he was trying to coerce them into something, I guess is a good way to put it. And of course they kind of try to get out of the conversation and get out of there. And she said, I want to say he turned and sort of, 1 minute he was there and the next minute just gone, whether he disappeared into the shadows or disappeared or whatever it was. But that of course didn't help the feeling that they had met some sort of demon or devil disguised as a human. And so they got out of there and they just very panicked. And she said when they got to their house, which wasn't too far away, quite close to that park, that as soon as they got in, like suddenly the electricity cut off and all sorts of weird stuff was going on at the house. And that they, she's like, I don't know if that was connected, but just circumstantially very strange. But I wish I could. Of course, I didn't record this. I wrote down notes at the time, but this was quite a long time ago, and I didn't record her telling me that. But I remember her description. I remember the hair on my neck was just standing up, just thinking, oh my gosh, it's one thing to see a Bigfoot, something in the woods, but to be standing face to face talking with what she perceived to be the devil incarnate was pretty freaky.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty intense. I wouldn't, and especially, if you're used to these, that's one thing. But like, if you're like your wheelhouse is like Bigfoot and cryptids and something that says, "Hey, I saw the devil," that's gonna be weird. But
Right.
yeah, for sure.
And I love those where they're just kind of, they don't quite fit into any certain category. Can't quite explain it. Those are kind of cool and they stand out. They're just very unique, and especially if you have spoken to the witness and you have that vibe from them. Yeah, it's just one of those ones where you may or may not get another report like it, but it was a creepy one.
Yeah, Ken told me one that was really weird the other day, but I'm gonna wait until I think he's coming on like the end of the month in August, right before we go for the conference. So, but he had one he told me the other day that I thought was taken in the correct context. You could go, oh, okay, I could see that. But he told me, I'm not gonna say it until he comes on, but he told me the story, and I just thought that is the most bizarre report I've ever heard. But then when he told me the context of it, like the person had been what he had been going through, then it made it a little more understandable. But yeah, that somebody claiming that they saw a devil, pretending to be a human, that's I don't know, man. That's pretty that's pretty crazy, dude. Well, Lyall, I'm gonna let you run, man. I know you got to go and got things you got to take care of, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for showing up, Lyall.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure as
You
always.
bet you. I always enjoyed it and look forward to seeing
September
you very
1, 2, and
soon.
3.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, as always. And then, of course, we had Larry come in and stop in the studio tonight. That was unexpected.
And Wolf, I just need to go ahead and tell you, I got 6 roofs today, and one of them is because of you. So you have a $300 commission coming on one of those roofs.
Yay.
So,
and now I can go and buy a whole case of Lyall's hot sauce.
Well, in this economy, I don't know. It might be just one bottle.
Yeah, Lyle's like, due to inflation.
Yeah, due to inflation.
He's like, it's not. I didn't set the prices, man. You know, like
I can't control it, man. Dude, it's a COVID charge.
what's going on, dude?
I swear, I was just looking at prices I'm about to manufacture that CD of our new album, and looking at comparing a few vendors. One of them had a COVID upcharge.
Oh.
I'm like, are you what? Why? Literally, I was like, okay, no.
What?
A death upcharge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it said a
that's great.
COVID upcharge. It was like 27 cents per disc or something.
Yeah.
I am not kidding you.
That's
COVID
ridiculous.
upcharge. I'm like, what does COVID have to do with the CD?
We've
Very-
already like had it over and over again.
I'm going to start charging like a flu and a strep throat upcharge to my books, man.
Exactly.
Because it's all out there.
That crud upcharge.
Yeah.
We all
Maybe
got
a
that.
laryngitis
Tick
tax,
bites.
tick tax.
Chiggers.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, if you the other day, I got scammed the other day. I'm not gonna say I got scammed, but I went into this place where I like to go and shop, right? And I'm not gonna say it's not their fault, but I guess there's some kind of like I was gonna ask you about that. Like I guess sriracha is like going for $80 a bottle on eBay or something. And so apparently there's some side of peppers that are like you can't find them right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were saying, right? Well, I go into this store. It's not a supermarket. What would you call it, Tony?
Oh, the H Mart.
It's where don't say the name of it, but it's where you buy the sandwiches we get for the workers, for the guys. Yeah, what would you call that? It's called something cafe, but it's got like a little market in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small store, but anyway,
Yeah.
I grabbed 3 things of salsa, and I was sitting there. I'm so used to BSing with the people behind the counter, and one of them listens to the show, and she's really cool. So I ended up just buying the stuff, gave them a tip. They have a little thing on there, and they work hard. They make sandwiches and pizzas and all kinds of stuff. So I got these hot sauces because they have no sodium, and they have this green sauce that's really good. It's kind of like Pollo Rico sauce, but it's like you got to make that sauce, Lyall. That really, I'll show you what I'm talking about one day off camera. But it's this light green sauce, and it's really, really good. And my wife made some the other day, and she was so disappointed. She didn't think it was going to come out good. And man, me and Anthony ate it all. But it was
that's great.
really good. Yeah.
I didn't get any of that.
Yeah. Well, I bought. Let's get this. I bought a container. A little freaking, well, it's not tiny, but it was 8 ounces, right? It was an 8-ounce container. And when I got to the truck and I was driving down the road, I handed my wife the receipt, and she's like, "Wow!" It was kind of expensive, you know. And so I grabbed the receipt and I looked at it. $13.75. $13.75, and I bought 3 of them. And it didn't dawn on me like. You know, I was like, what? No wonder that sounded high, you know, and I had already gotten it and taken it, and one of them was open. So I was like, you know, what am I going to do? Go, you know, and so I just ate it, but, you know, it literally and figuratively, you know, but it was like $13.75. It's $14 for a 8-ounce thing of hot sauce.
Ridiculous.
That's not something that's happening with all of them, is it? I mean, that's not going on, right?
No, I don't know anything about that because my
He'd be happy to sell. Lyall would be happy to sell you his for $13.
My
Yeah,
barber.
exactly.
well, my that original Rogue Red Chili is it's a red chilies. It's essentially very close to a sriracha, more of a kind of I sometimes describe it as a Texas sriracha in a way. Same, we're talking about the same peppers being used, and there's been no issue with that. So I don't know what's going on with, unless they're using something that's very specific, which they could be, but I haven't. There's not affected monster sauce.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness, because that would be ridiculous. I'm sitting there going,
I mean,
"Geez."
I to be honest, I mean, you can say this. I used to be really huge into sriracha, but I think ever since I tried that monster sauce, I haven't really been using it as much. I think.
Oh yeah, Lyall's is way better than
Yeah.
sriracha, dude.
Right on. Yeah,
Sriracha's
because
just kind of like peppery ketchup or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and not to brag, but you guys have had it, and somebody sent me a message the other day and said I picked up the Howling Habanero at Monster Mart, and they said that it's literally the best hot sauce I've ever had. I live in Texas. Where can I get it around here? They were trying to get more already. So, it's those kind of things where you're happy because, I don't do stunt sauces. People are like, what's the hottest? I do flavor, and some of them are hotter than others. Some of them, habanero's hot. The other is milder, but it's all flavor first and adds that heat. So I think that's what's the difference. Instead of just
there's definitely a great balance that you've struck, and I'm excited to try that habanero because I had some before, and some of them are just like a little bit too much. Where like I'm not saying like too much heat, but it's just like it kind of ruins whatever you're eating.
Yeah, you can definitely mess up your meal if you eat it too hot. Like,
this is definitely not for the people who like mild, but it's just enough heat to be spicy, but super good on the flavor. And I don't even like really hot ones, but anyway. But I'll definitely hook you guys up at the Dog Man because I'm going to order a bunch of cases. In fact, the bottler is in Mineral Wells, which is not far from where the conference is, and not far from Lakeworth. So, I may or may not have secret goat man ingredients.
Oh,
Yeah, man.
you never know what could be lurks over there. Huh?
So
you have a good one, Lyle.
Yeah. All right, Lyall.
Thanks a bunch.
You taking off, Larry?
I got to get.
all right, Larry.
Okay, man.
Hey, good to see you.
All right, Lyall,
for
I'm going to
coming
let
on,
you
Larry.
run, and Larry's going to run too. So I'll see you at the conference, Lyall, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
sounds good, man. I'll see you guys there.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
So that is. You look like you're pretty tired, boy. Are you wiped?
Long day.
I was up till 4 o'clock one morning, 3 o'clock the next morning. 3 hours sleep each time when you're driving 500 miles to take care of a room.
Crisscrossing Texas.
It's really got.
Well,
Is
that's
the show
cool.
still on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still on.
Oh,
That's what makes a show authentic. We're not sitting up here stuffed up and acting like we're not putting on airs. We're just here talking, having a good time.
Well, I appreciate y'all letting me stop in. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Larry. Heck yeah, anytime, brother.
Later, Larry.
As soon as that roof is done, I'll be sliding to the money.
Whenever you got it, man.
Looking for all those referrals.
Do you need another shirt?
What's that?
You need another shirt?
I do.
Get him a shirt. We got it. We still have some conference shirts from last year too. So, folks, yeah, that was Lyall Blackburn, good friend of mine. As you can see, we talk quite a bit. He's a very busy guy, but never too busy for his friends. He's a salt of the earth kind of guy, as are all my friends in this community, and I'm appreciative of that. It's not a joke living in a haunted house. I mean, he takes it in stride, but some of the weird things that he's kept me abreast of what's been going on, it's not something that you would want to go through. He can take it in stride. He does the best he can with it, and you can kind of, joke about it, whatever. But the bottom line is this stuff is real. It happens. And I don't know what to say. I mean, if you're a person who is into the spooky and the weird and the mysterious and all that, then maybe that's your cup of tea. Maybe that's something you want to be walking up in the middle of the night by something grabbing you or being, go in the shower and something touches you. I don't know. But that's not something that I'm into. I'm not talking about Lyall. I'm talking about the average person. It's like, some of these goth people, they're into that. They're like, oh, I want to, live in a haunted house, whatever. And I think Lyall was seriously joking. Didn't realize that it was going to actually happen. And me and Barton were kind of like, well, I mean, we had both attested that we had lived in these kind of houses, and it wasn't fun. Barton told me an extremely scary story, and I'll tell you, just very quick, his grandchildren were at the house, and they said that they heard I guess the grandparents, not his grandchildren, his children, they thought that they had heard the grandparents upstairs in a room. And they were making a bunch of noise, and they said, Mama and Papa, whatever, I forgot how he worded it. Maybe Barton could enlighten me here, but they were upstairs, and they hear this, what they think are their grandparents. And they wanted to go up to the room, and so Barton had to go up there and check, and he's like, they're not up there. That's not them. And he goes up there, of course, and there's nobody there. It's not something that you want to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and just the nervousness of not knowing when it's going to happen or something's going to happen. It's just something you don't want to deal with, believe me. It's taxing, it's stressful. No, I didn't move out of my house, but the haunting and everything is kind of chilled out. I think here it is. Barton just said it on there. He says, my stepson heard his sister screaming upstairs when he came home from school. I remember that one, but I thought you had told one about you thought they heard their grandparents or something upstairs. I thought there was something specific like that. But then again, I could be getting somebody else's story mixed up because, that's your story to tell, whatever, when you want to tell it. What do we got? About 20 minutes?
Yeah.
What are people thinking about all this UFO stuff lately? Like all this, there's supposedly disclosure and all this and that. Do you think it's happening? Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's real? I mean,
Well, they're about to be just FOs, I think.
flying objects.
Yeah.
There's like talk of disclosure now.
Yeah, it's happened. You didn't know that?
No.
Red Harvest says PSYOP.
I mean, yeah, that's along the lines of what I was going to say. Like, if any government agency admits to anything along those lines, like, it's not just some like offhand decision. It's for a specific purpose to serve whatever plan or agenda they have.
Well, that could be. I mean,
because they're going to tell you what they want you to know, not what actually is. They might tell you part of what is, but that's about it, if you're lucky.
Having been on this road, on this journey for so long, I'm going to tell you what I think that anything that they tell you, imagine it's 1,000 times worse.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. If they say, oh, they've abducted 10 people, they've abducted, fucking 10,000 people. I mean, let's put it that way. If they say, oh, they've only taken 10,000, then times that times, 100,000, whatever. It's always worse. Thousands of times worse than and it's a lot grittier than they're going to give you. I saw something today, a friend of mine posted on there. Thank you for that donation, William. I saw something today. Somebody posted on my Facebook, and they said one of my friends from China. It was a he, I believe he said. They said one of my friends from China said that they don't watch the news, and they're surprised that Americans pay attention to the news at all. And this guy, he was like, well, why don't you watch the news? And she told him, well, it's because it's all we know in China that the news is all coming from one source. It's all propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I'm surprised that y'all here in America haven't figured that out yet.
Well,
it's the same thing. They just create the illusion of different networks. But I'm sure a lot of y'all in the audience have seen these videos where they show a news person saying something, and then
they switch to another one.
Yeah.
And it'll be Fox, MSNBC. It'll be every one of them.
Local news, everyone.
CNN, whatever.
It's like they all have the same script.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, and they just say the same exact thing, and then they'll deviate a little bit later on when they're pretending to be enemies or whatever it is that they do. It's like pro wrestling, but except pro wrestling, they actually do kind of hurt each other. It's really ridiculous, and you're not going to get, if the mainstream media is giving you those crumbs, think about where the pie is at. Think about that. It's here. Not just on PRT, it's here. It's in these channels. It's in YouTube channels, and it's coming from a real reputable source. Independent people who aren't affiliated with the big time. Now, I wanted to make an announcement. Someone offered to buy my channel. And it was a substantial amount of money. Their deal was, okay, I'm not going to do it. It's ridiculous. Good. It was. We talked about this as a group. It was a decent amount, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't an insult.
No,
by
definitely
any-
not. It's just if we're thinking long term, then it's just we don't get the better end of that deal. They do.
And then I kind of was, and y'all know this, as I was beginning to read the contract, it kind of reminded me of, a particular movie where 300 men stood up and defied the odds until they were all killed. And you know where I'm going with that. And they come and they hold up the skulls, look, we have an army, drinks rivers dry, whatever. You should join us because in the end, it's all going to be ours anyway, type of attitude. This person was like, I was like, what? They have very, snarky attitude. And I had talked to Garitano about it, like this snarky attitude people, and we might even get into it a little bit on the interview we did. I don't know. And it was like, and no way I'm going to sell you. And then if I decide that I don't want to work, because I was going to have to work for them, they were going to tell me what to do and I was going to work for them. And then I have to decide whether it's worth it or not, that there's no compete clause and I can't have a show about paranormal stuff for 5 years or some kind of bullcrap, hoobamajoo in there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Nobody's going to sit here and I don't care how much money. You could bring a dump truck and dump the money into the parking lot right here. My freedom of speech and the freedom to do what I got to do and say what I got to say
Priceless.
is priceless. It's worth more than 10 dump trucks full of money. I don't care. And that person's like, well, it's your choice. Yeah, it is my choice, and I made my choice. Kind of left a salty taste in my mouth, a little bitter taste in my mouth, I guess. And I was a little bit salty, because they weren't being insulting with the price, but the stupidity level that a child, might agree to something like that. I'm not that person. I'm not starstruck by this, whatever. I'll make it to the big time, and now, at what cost? Because it's got to be on our terms, not on their terms, and that will never happen. They're not going to do that.
I mean, I think we all have the belief that we have the ability to make it to the big times anyway. So then it's just really about, are we being lazy enough to
Once
put
this
in the
gout
work?
clears up, I'm going to play for the Spurs. So
Well, I mean, yeah.
Well, you can do anything you set your mind to. But
you could literally
maybe-
fly, literally.
I mean, your mind can be on it, but your body might be like, hey, whoa, hold up now.
Your body's like,
You can't do all that with me. Maybe with another body, but
oh.
in another life.
That sounds like quitter talk. I don't believe in that.
Yeah. Defeated.
like you're dead. You literally you're bleeding out. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe in bleeding out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing it happen, but it's not going to happen.
I would simply choose not to die.
I'm just choosing not to bleed
I guess
out.
you're just weak enough to die, but not
I'm
me.
yelling at my blood now. Get back where you belong. Where are you going?
Yeah, if you yell at your body like loud enough and with enough intensity, it'll do what you want it to do.
Yeah. Well, that's like the person with the gym membership who just drives up to the gym and looks at it.
Yeah.
Because that's all you got time for.
Yeah, they get fit by osmosis.
Yeah.
That they absorb like our energy coming out of the gym.
There is a gym here in Austin that's only open. It's open. It's not open on Sunday. It's only open for 6 hours on Saturday, and they're only open on Friday until like 9 o'clock or something. So it's like 12 hours. I think like 12 hours on Friday or something, and then they close at like 9 every day, and they open at 9 or something. It's like who?
Well, it's a perfect gym for people who want an excuse to not work out.
Yeah, we know plenty of those people.
What's up? What's up?
What? But if that's the kind of gym you want to go work out at, I mean, I guess that's fine. That's what you're going to do, whatever. Before we bail, I'll tell you a quick story. And I was thinking about this earlier. I was going to tell it. along the lines of what Lyall had said about somebody who gave him a story that was about a person who was pretending to be a human. They were a devil. This one is very similar to that. And this one, I read it the other day, and I was like, wow, that's really creepy. And it was a person who saw a weird individual at the mall, and it was one of Albert Rosales' stories. And literally, this woman saw what looked like robotic-looking people, I guess you could say. She was at a mall. And like I said, I got this from Albert Rosales, and I was reading through some of his stuff, and it was so weird, like, because I've felt like that's happened before. Like, I've sat there and just watched people, at the mall. In particular, one day I was there, I think with you, Anthony. We were in the food court, and Nellie was getting something at Bath and Body Works, wherever. I don't remember what was going on, but we were waiting, and I was just sitting there, and we were just watching people go by. And this person that had given Albert this story, and Albert Rosales is a very prolific author too. He's written books called The Humanoids, okay? And it's just like all these encounters of humanoids just going decade to decade. And he used to have the same guy that published his stuff with Barton or whatever. They were all in the same circle together. Yeah, he's a really good guy. And I just talked to him the other day, and he might make the Dogman Conference. I'm hoping he does. But there was this woman who claimed to have seen this person walking, and then a smaller version of that person walking right in front of them, like a clone, like a smaller, miniature, young version of that person. And they walked very weird. It was just very like they just walked straight, and it was so weird because she just knew that they were not normal people. They didn't blink. You know what I mean? It was like biological robots or something. But then when she got home, she was still like kind of freaked out. And it was weird because it made me think about that when Lyall was talking about how they saw this person or entity or whatever it was. And then these people go home, and then all this wackiness ensues at their house. The same thing happened to this woman. She goes home, and I didn't commit this to memory. I just something that I'm only talking about it because of Lyall's story, but it just struck me because I just read it like a week ago or something, and I have to go back and maybe I can give you the whole. I can read it to you, whatever. But it was just a weird story, and it was like, yeah, something happened. She saw some weird people. She knew they weren't human. It was like they were pretending to be people. And then she goes home and has this weird, stuff happening. There's like some paranormal, stuff that happens. Here's one I got that's kind of along those lines too. This happened at a baseball, not a baseball game, a football game, a small town here in Texas. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the town of Snyder. It's a very small town, but they were at a football game, and this person said back in 1978, they were at a football game, a homecoming game for Snyder. I believe it was 1978. And they went like behind the bleachers. They went underneath the whatever. There was like a concession stand or whatever, and their kids were running around, whatever. And there was this one individual who was standing there watching the children. And this person, the female that told me this, she's a female. This very tall, gaunt-looking man. And she's like, I look at this guy, and I'm like, he was underneath our bleachers. Our, hometown is like, there's no, like, we know everybody, right? She knows everybody. And she's like, I was a teenager. My little brother was there playing. And she's like, this man, he looked so weird. He had dark hair, dark eyes, kind of swarthy skin. He looked really out of place. She's like, he just looked weird. It was so weird. His eyes were just so angry looking. And she said he was staring at the kids as they were playing. So it kind of freaked her out. And so this is back before people were as aware of, child abduction, all the things that go on now. People like just weren't as in tune with it back then. Back in the 80s, we were like a feral generation. And so, you know, you know, when the street lights, the joke is when the street lights started to come on, you knew you had to get home. Yeah. That was kind of my generation. We didn't have cell phones, and back then it would have been a lot easier for these predators to do what they do. But she's like, I had a really bad feeling about this guy. Here's what's really weird, dude. We were talking about people who aren't really people, right? You're talking about NPCs, whatever. She said that he looked like he was moving his body when she came back from getting the concession. I don't remember what she said she got. But anyway, she got a Coke and hot dog or something. She's coming back. This guy is moving his body like he's mimicking some of the children. And she thought, what in the heck is this guy doing? So she went and got her little brother. She's like, hey, you know, let's go. And he's like, no, I don't want to. He didn't want to listen to her. She's several years older than him. And she's like, yes, you're going to come with me, or I'm going to tell mom and dad. So she grabbed him and she went back up into the stands, into the bleachers. And then he wanted to go and play. So he started bugging his mother, and she was about to let him. And she says, no, there's a weird guy down there. So the mom looks down and she sees this weird guy. Here's what happened. She told him, no, you're going to sit here. It's fourth quarter, whatever. We're going to finish the game, whatever. When they are leaving this small stadium, whatever, this weird guy was just walking, you know, like not to a car. He was just walking. And they said the way he was walking was very exaggerated. You know, I'm doing this. Like, they didn't show me, but I'm like, you know, somebody would walk very like, hey, I'm walking, you know. And when they turned and they were getting into their car and they looked at him, her dad had went on the other side. He looked at the guy, and the guy stopped and told him, he was like, do you know where I can find lodging? And, you know, it's like, that's not how people talk.
Yeah.
And then he said when he turned, he said literally when the guy moved, it sounded like a creak, like you know, like a creak, and hit the words that she used was like he was like the Tin Man. Even weirder, her mom and dad saw like some sort of little spark or something come off the side of his right eye while he was standing there in front of him. She's like, me and my brother and my other sister, we were getting in the car. And her parents were like, what the heck was that? Was this a robot? I mean, was he a cyborg? Was he an alien? What was this guy? And they were totally confused. So when they were pulling out, they knew one of the local police, whatever, or somebody that was doing security there, I think, but it was a police officer or whatever. And kind of told him, hey, there's a weird guy that was watching the kids earlier. He's just kind of hanging around. He's acting bizarre, you know, whatever. He said, he's right over there. He's walking toward the fence line, whatever. Guy goes over there to talk to him. He goes into the shadows, like where the darkness, it is an area where it gets dark. He couldn't, you know. Comes back out. And just was kind of walking back, and they were watching, and they said, well, I don't know, we got to go, you know. A couple days later, they run into this particular guy, and they said, did you talk to this guy? He says, no. When I got into the shadows, you know, where I could see, you know, he's like, he was gone. It's like he faded out. Don't know where he went or how he went, but he was gone. So, you know, you start to wonder, coneheads. When I was a kid, Chris, I was actually afraid of them. I literally was scared of the coneheads. My mom thought it was the funniest thing. I'd be in my room playing or whatever. It's Saturday Night Live is on, you know, and Saturday night was the only night I could stay up late. And on Friday I tried to, but I was always tired from school. And so they would be like, hey, come here, check this out. And I'd go in there, and the coneheads would be there. And I hated them so bad. They looked so freaking creepy. I just did not like them at all. And they said, we come from France, you know, and it plays on the ignorance of the average American that, you know, oh, well, that's why they're different, because they're from France. It's not because they have these weird, tall, weird looking heads. It was Saturday Night Live.
Or 17 rows of teeth.
Yeah. Here's another one. If y'all want to hear another story, otherwise we can shut it down. It's up to you guys. We don't have the biggest crowd we've ever had, but we got 450 people in here. What do you guys want to do? Well, they got some weird humanoids here.
Those are our fans, sir. You can't call them that.
While they're deciding, which I'm sure they're going to overwhelmingly vote for another story, like the story that you just told, that's weird that you told that one, because earlier today I was watching a video of this AI that's being developed in this it's this software that's used to make video games. It's called Unreal Engine, and what they're doing with it now is they made this demo where like you're walking around in a city and it's full of these people that like NPCs, but the NPCs, they don't have, like, you can go up and talk to them, but they don't have like recorded voice lines.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of them is controlled by AI. So what you do is you walk up to one of these NPCs and you start talking to them, like you hold the button down and you talk into your microphone, and they respond to whatever it is you say, and they respond with like convincing emotion, and that they know exactly what it is that you're saying, and the way they talk, like their tone, their diction, their inflection, it's almost convincing. But you can still kind of tell that you're talking to a robot, but it's not like cartoonish robot, robotic. It's just off enough to recognize that there's something not right. Like, this is not a human being, and I would imagine that's how they heard this person talking that story.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Maybe it was something from the future.
Well, I mean, maybe it was something that's actually being developed and tested without our knowledge, by, I don't know, some alphabet agency within our own government. Because it's very hard to simulate.
This is like 1978, 77, something like that.
It doesn't matter. I mean, technology is drip fed to us.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier. So you're saying, but I mean, in
I'm saying,
conclusion, that what this is basically something that was around even back then that could be from our own.
Yeah, because it's very hard to simulate, or to convincingly simulate human sentience. Like just trying to simulate a human mind is difficult enough, because the brain, we know, is actually more powerful than the most advanced supercomputer that we publicly know of. That they just can't come close to simulating a human brain. But that's the thing, is that that's just what we know of. But I'm talking about what we don't know of.
Mm.
This could have been like kind of like a beta test, like way back then even.
Well, remember how you asked the question, like, what is a biological human? What makes them different from just like a regular robot?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it exactly. Is that it's like it's flesh, everything, without the soul, without that like ingredient which turns them into a human. But because of that, they're like some kind of, they're still technically human in flesh and all of that, but they don't have that thing that makes them act like a human. So then you would call them a robot in a way, because that's the closest thing you could compare it to.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the difference, where like robots are like metal and these biological robots are flesh, and they should be something, but they're missing that single component which makes them whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's very weird. I don't know.
And just to simulate human body language and locomotion, like just the act of walking and the things that we do naturally, just turning our heads, moving our eyes, to the way we move our arms, whatever, like that's a whole thing in and of itself. That's going to be very hard to simulate mechanically and with programming.
Well,
but to simulate like a human mind, emotions, and the body, that's like extremely, extremely advanced.
Well, I mean, not even just to mention, if you're, sorry, I lost my train of thought when. What was I thinking?
Right. Well, I think we kept them waiting for the story long enough. If you remember afterwards,
remember it.
we'll get back to it.
Well, nobody really said they wanted to hear it. Maybe like two people. So probably just have to bounce on this one. Thanks, guys, for checking out the show. Thanks for being here. Just remember, my book is done. The first one is done. Well, they're both done. But the first one, I've already
We're
got the
finalizing
right
it.
here. Werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena. And check it out. It's going to look a little different when it's all when it gets finalized. It's going to be a little bit thicker. I did take some stuff out, and so it made it a little smaller. And then, of course, the book. There's going to be some stuff put back into it, so and the print's going to be a little bigger because I don't want to strain my eyes trying to read that.
I remembered my thought.
What was your thought?
Well, I was just how he was saying how the human body just like moves and has its own actions, but not only just that, but how we can convey those actions and translate that to a knowledge. Like language is 99% body language.
Okay, folks, I'm going to tell a story since everybody's saying story.
They want to hear it?
No, you go ahead and say what you have to say first.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like the being able to read a human body, like that's something that's going to be so super difficult. And it speaks volumes about like how humans have grown up, or not really like evolved into reading, seeing what someone does and knowing exactly what they're meaning, they're feeling, what their intentions are.
Because like how most communication is nonverbal.
Exactly.
So since we've been talking recently about all this stuff, dude, I'm gonna tell you guys, the audience, they already know I'm talking to the choir, but we've gotten so many reports of people like, okay. For example, one of the places we like to go and hang out is this place called Pinballs. I'll give them a free plug. It's a great place. We love that place. It's cool. I was talking to one of the workers there several months back, and it was workers. It was a guy and a girl, both, and they were telling us about what seemed like somebody who. This wasn't a foreigner that didn't understand our culture. No, this is like an alien. Okay. They were having to show them every single thing about playing what's it called? Not laser tag, the virtual whatever. Like, what's it called?
The VR?
With the VR, yeah.
Yeah.
They were having to show them every single thing about it, whatever. And then after it was all done, they were just like not impressed. And they were talking to each other in some language that they didn't understand. And they were like not impressed with it. And so the guy was like, "Where y'all from?" And he goes, "Oh, not from here." And he's like, "Well, where are you from?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a long ways." And they kind of look at each other. And he's like, the way they moved and the way they walked and the way they talked and the way they were like looking at this thing like it was a primitive, like it was a rock. To us, it's cutting edge VR, like check it out. And they're just like, whatever, not impressed, He thought, he goes, I asked him. Now, the one down in South Austin, well, I guess it's in Buda, actually, technically. It's supposedly haunted. And I know the manager down there, and I sat there after hours one night and just talked, and they told me stories about the haunting, whatever. So when I was up at the one up north, I was sitting there waiting for me and Nellie's turn or whatever. And then I guess she had decided not to do it or whatever. So we I don't remember how it went down. It was several months ago. And then we ended up leaving or something. And it might have been the time when Ken was with us. I don't know. But anyway, I was sitting there and it was like, I asked the guy point blank, "Has he ever had anything weird?" I said, "The guys down in the south say that it's haunted." And then the guy says, "Hey, the one off 183's got some weird stuff that's happened there too. I've pulled some shifts there." I was like, "Oh, really?" So we started talking, and he said his girlfriend used to work there and too. And so we were talking, and he said he had something really weird happen, and he was talking about those guys that had gone in there and that they were like, and so he didn't he had seen a UFO before, right? And he had a sort of mild ghost encounter, but that was crazy. Like he's like, I had never had anything like that. He said, I really was convinced that these guys they weren't normal people. And he's like, and they were tall. They were like 6'5", both of them. And they had like long hair. They were both blonde haired guys. And so he thought maybe they were Nordic people, And when he said Nordic, I was thinking, well, that's a term used, to describe certain types of aliens, is the Nordics. And I kind of explained it to him, and he was just kind of like, really? He was a young guy, really didn't know. and the girl she came up and kind of vouched for him, you know. And I think it was like I talked to him for a few minutes, and then Nellie had gone to the restroom, is what it was, and we ended up not doing it or something, and we went and did something else. But I don't remember. I just remember having a brief conversation. You know, it wasn't like a long, drawn-out thing, but they did talk about seeing two guys that just seemed so out of place, so weird. They didn't have like anything on them, like nothing in their pockets. You know, it was weird. Like
Their mannerisms were just
well,
different.
the reason they knew that was because the girls see how some people carry like keys and wallets and stuff
Yeah.
in your pockets, and like the one guy like said he asked for the card, which is the game card, and the other dude put his hands in his pockets. Both of them did, and neither one of them had anything in their pockets except the game card,
Yeah.
which she thought was odd because she's like people pull their stuff out of their pockets all the time.
At the very least, a phone.
And think about it, and there was no phone. And think about it, women are very good with detail. They pay attention to detail a lot better than dudes do. And I'm sorry, but that's the truth, guys. I'm not trying to be ugly. But women have that advantage on us, man. They pay attention to detail. They're like, remember that time back before you were born, you made me mad?
Last
And you're like-
Tuesday at 17:03.
Yeah, they
PM.
remember exactly when it was. And so it was just, you know, it was weird. When she came up, she gave a little more insight, you know, and then I gave them a card to the show, and for all I know, they're listening. But it was just a weird story. Now, that wasn't even the story I was going to tell. There's a lot of others. So we haven't actually recorded the episode for this coming Tuesday, but you guys here in the chat that are here today with Paranormal Roundtable on this live stream, tell me what you, if you guys think about me doing a show, because I have enough material for this to do a show on people who probably aren't really people. I don't know what we would call it. But you know, we could make that our next Tuesday's show, because we haven't even decided what we were going to talk about. We've been doing lots of Dogman and Crypted stuff, so we thought we'd do something different. May not get as many views, but it's good stuff. I mean, if you want to know about not people, unpeople, it's like, there's some freaky stuff, man. I've gotten some weird stories, and ever since we've been talking about it, the stories came in, you know, they've been coming in telling us, hey, you know, I've seen this weird thing happen. You know, like there's a person that's not really a person. And then the whole thing, yeah, exactly, like the woman on the plane. And since we've been talking about it, it's just been more prevalent, you know, and so if you guys want to hear a show about that, let me know. And we'll do that one for the next one. I think the thing's freezing up too.
It's not freezing up on my
It's
end.
slowing down. Like earlier, it was stuck, and then a bunch of.
Oh, you mean the chat?
Yeah, the chat. Yeah. It was
Oh, yeah.
stuck.
That's just YouTube. It does that
We can't
sometimes.
control that.
Jason, people aren't people, so why should it be? Exactly. Jackie.
Hey, that's a John Prine song. Some people ain't people.
So yeah, John, they were talking about John Prine earlier when we
Yeah.
were, you know, Jackie says lizard people. Sugi, where's that at? The prophecy about soulless bodies walking the streets at the end of times. Crab people. I don't know. There's a lot of
Bad
weird
people.
stories out there. A lot of weird stories. Anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in. You know, that's it for tonight. Thank you to my guests. Larry showed up. Larry Fisher, good guy. He'll be at the conference. He's a really cool dude. Does a lot of research and shares a lot of information and stories with me too. And then Lyall Blackburn, of course, showing up and doing the show tonight was nice to have him in the studio. A very busy guy, just like me. Okay, folks, thank you. Don't forget, the book's coming out, so we're getting closer. And let me get rid of this crap. I can't even tell you where it's coming from, because I don't even eat things that have it. So once that's done attacking my leg, and then I can get to the post office and get your stuff mailed out for the Patreon. Just be patient. We got you down. Don't worry. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you for the donations, everybody. That will definitely help pay for the conference. And thank you and good night.